An ancient coffin was discovered in China, but when archaeologists looked inside, they were shocked. Hello, and welcome to the Ancient History Channel. My friend, did you know that there are things that have lain quietly beneath the earth for thousands, even tens of thousands of years, seemingly buried by time forever? Yet sometimes, all it takes is a single strike of a shovel, a single excavation, and the entire history of humanity can be turned upside down. Archaeological discoveries are not merely bones, pottery, or ancient ruins. They are vivid fragments of the past, powerful enough to leave the whole world stunned and force us to question what we once believed to be true. Just imagine, what would happen if an ancient tomb containing an enormous treasure were suddenly uncovered? Or if a strange set of remains appeared in a place where modern humans were never expected to exist? Every groundbreaking archaeological discovery is like a door opening, taking us back in time and allowing us to glimpse the lives, beliefs, and mysteries left behind by our ancestors. Some discoveries have sparked debates among scientists for decades. Others have completely rewritten history textbooks. And the most frightening and most fascinating realization of all is this: what humanity knows about the past is still only a very small part of the whole picture. Beneath every inch of ground we stand on, there may still be secrets powerful enough to shake the entire world, waiting for the day they are finally revealed. And in today's video, I will bring you many remarkable archaeological discoveries just like these. So stay tuned. A flooded tomb and a treasure of 5,300 foreign artifacts that shocked China. Have you ever wondered what would happen if a royal tomb were submerged in water for hundreds of years? And when finally opened, it turned out to conceal a treasure far beyond imagination? If not, then join me as we travel back in time to the year 2001. That year, in Hubei province, Chinese archaeologists truly faced such a moment. A tomb dating back to the Ming dynasty was unexpectedly discovered. At first glance, it seemed ordinary, but the deeper they explored, the more unbelievable the story became. The moment the tomb was opened, experts were left stunned. It was not just one or two valuable items, but an enormous treasure spread out before them. Gold, silver, gemstones, and ancient artifacts were piled layer upon layer. But that was not all. What caused everyone to pause and think deeply was that among these treasures, many clearly originated from foreign lands. A Ming dynasty tomb, buried deep within inland China, why did it contain so many Western artifacts? The surprises did not end there. Archaeologists soon realized that this tomb had an extremely unusual feature: water. Water was seeping out from inside, indicating that the entire tomb complex had once been submerged for a long period of time. For Chinese archaeology, this was almost unheard of. For thousands of years, the Chinese had been renowned for their highly sophisticated waterproof tomb construction techniques. The more important the tomb, the stronger its resistance to water. So the question arose, why did this Ming dynasty tomb fail to withstand water? To find the answer, experts decided to undertake a task that was anything but simple: draining all the water from inside the tomb. The process lasted a full 12 days, with tension hanging over every single hour. No one knew whether, once the water was gone, they would find destruction, emptiness, or something far beyond expectations. And then, when the final traces of water disappeared, the door to history opened in a way no one had anticipated. Inside lay a truly massive treasure. According to estimates, approximately 5,300 extremely valuable artifacts were discovered, including gold, silver, gemstones, and countless exquisitely crafted burial objects. What astonished experts even more was that many of these artifacts did not follow traditional Chinese styles, but clearly originated from foreign countries. So who was the owner of this tomb? Someone capable of possessing such an international collection? This question quickly became a hot topic among archaeologists and the public alike. After a long period of studying thousands of artifacts, cross-referencing historical records, and analyzing clues within the tomb, Chinese archaeologists finally reached a conclusion. This was the final resting place of Prince Liang Zhuang, Zhu Jianji. He was the nephew of the Yongle Emperor, Zhu Di, and the younger brother of the Xuande Emperor, placing him among the highest ranks of the Ming royal family. Prince Liang Zhuang passed away in 1441 at just 30 years old. Notably, he left no male heir. As a result, most of the wealth and precious items he owned during his lifetime were buried with him. This explains why the treasure within the tomb was so vast and abundant. As for the foreign artifacts, experts explain that while he was alive, Prince Liang Zhuang made multiple voyages to the western seas. On each journey, he brought back rare and valuable items from western regions. When he died, all of these treasures were buried alongside him, turning this tomb into a vivid testament to East-West cultural exchange hundreds of years ago. A flooded tomb, an enormous treasure, and a mysterious royal identity. This story not only overwhelms us with its wealth, but also forces us to re-examine history from a completely different perspective. Don't you think so? Headless remains of a mother and child in a 2,500-year-old tomb in the Altai Mountains. Amid the icy Altai Mountains, where the mere sound of the wind is enough to send a chill down one's spine, archaeologists dug into the frozen ground with a very simple initial goal: to find more clues about how ancient people once lived. But what they uncovered instead made the entire team freeze in place for several seconds as they tried to process what they were seeing. Beneath the ancient soil lay a 2,500-year-old tomb. Inside were two sets of human remains, but the shocking detail that made everyone swallow hard was this: both skeletons were missing their heads. And that was not all. The heads had not disappeared or been discarded somewhere far away. They had been deliberately severed and carefully placed at the feet of the bodies, positioned neatly near the knees. One set of remains belonged to an adolescent, the other to an adult. Upon closer examination, experts discovered that both individuals were dressed in fur garments decorated with gold. At first glance, this may sound luxurious, but in reality, it reflects something very practical. In the bitterly cold regions of Siberia, ancient people believed that even in the afterlife, the dead would still have to endure the freezing cold. Burying them in fur clothing was like sending them off with a warm coat, in the hope that they would not shiver in the next world. Thinking about it is both unsettling and strangely comforting at the same time. Subsequent analysis revealed that the two individuals were biologically related, very likely a mother and her child, and belonged to the ancient Pazyryk culture. This culture is well known for its elaborate tombs, rich grave goods, and burial rituals deeply influenced by spiritual beliefs. True to that reputation, archaeologists also found two small bronze mirrors, several ceramic objects, and many ancient gold foil pieces that were remarkably well preserved. These details closely resemble discoveries previously made at the Taldur II burial site near the ancient village of Beltir. At this point, another question arose. Had the tomb been looted at some point in the past? Dr. Nikita Konstantinov, who led the excavation, explained that headless burials were not uncommon in ancient times, especially during periods of warfare. Victors often took the heads of the defeated as symbols of power and military achievement, which is why many ancient graves are completely missing skulls. However, this case presents a serious problem. Archaeologists have never encountered a child buried without a head. Moreover, there were no signs that this mother and child were enemies or captives. In addition, the skeletons and grave goods were found in their proper positions, with no signs of disturbance. This makes the theory of grave robbery highly unlikely. Another hypothesis, one that sends a chill down the spine, has also been proposed. It is possible that ancient people believed the spirits of the dead could return to haunt the living. Cutting off the head and placing it separately may have been seen as a way to seal the soul, preventing it from coming back to disturb the world of the living. It sounds frightening, but given the spiritual beliefs of ancient cultures, such practices were entirely possible. Of course, this remains only a hypothesis for now. As for the true reason behind this unusual burial, it is still unknown. The Ghost Yacht, frozen beneath the Antarctic Sea. Do you know of a place with a desolate landscape where icy winds cut across a frozen ocean, where there is not a single tree in sight nor the sound of a bird? Only ice, snow, and the endless depths of the sea? That place is the southernmost region of Earth, Antarctica, one of the harshest environments on the planet, yet also a land that holds countless unsolved mysteries. And to begin today's video, we will explore one of the strangest stories ever to unfold here: the journey of a ghost ship frozen beneath the Antarctic Sea. Mar Sem Phim, also known as the Endless Ocean. Mar Sem Phim was not an old cargo ship or a worn-out war vessel. It was a modern Brazilian yacht owned by the well-known journalist and entrepreneur João Lara Mesquita. In April 2012, he and 3 colleagues traveled to the waters off Antarctica with the goal of filming a documentary about the region's environment and ecosystem. However, none of them could have imagined that this journey would end in such a haunting and mysterious accident. The incident occurred on April 7th. While the yacht was anchored in a small bay called Ardley Cove, part of Maxwell Bay, about 750 miles south of the southern tip of South America, a powerful storm suddenly struck. Wind gusts exceeding 60 miles per hour caused Mar-Sem Phim to tilt violently. The hull was torn apart by wind and waves, and every attempt to stabilize the vessel proved futile. Fortunately, all 4 people on board were rescued in time by the Chilean Navy from the nearby Bahia Fildes base, narrowly avoiding a deadly tragedy. However, the strange part of the story began the moment the yacht was abandoned. Temperatures in the area dropped so low that the surrounding seawater nearly froze solid, trapping the yacht tightly within thick layers of ice. In a short period of time, pressure from massive ice flows caused the hull to crack apart, forcing the vessel to sink to the bottom of the bay at a depth of about 30 feet. For months, no one could reach Mar-Sem Phim. Only faint aerial images captured the eerie sight of the yacht, half submerged like a ghost clinging beneath the transparent ice, creating a scene that was both beautiful and deeply unsettling. It seemed as though the story would end there. But in early 2013, João Lara Mesquita decided to return to Antarctica in an effort to recover his vessel. When weather conditions allowed, he and a team of divers began a challenging salvage operation. They had to dive into the freezing water to wrap cables around the hull, then attach those cables to special flotation devices positioned on both sides of the yacht. These flotation devices were slowly inflated, gradually lifting the vessel from the frozen waters after nearly a year beneath the ice. When Mar-Sem Phim finally resurfaced, it was an emotional moment. Although the yacht had suffered severe damage, the hull was cracked, and the onboard equipment was nearly beyond repair, most of its structure remained intact enough to be useful for research purposes. The yacht was then towed ashore so scientists could recover cameras, sensors, and documentary materials related to the unfinished film project. Unfortunately, despite being insured for $700,000, the vessel was essentially impossible to repair after spending 10 months trapped beneath the Antarctic ice. Mar-Sem Phim was not just a simple maritime accident. It stands as a powerful reminder of the extreme harshness of Antarctica, a place where even modern machines become small and helpless. At the same time, the yacht resembles a kind of living tomb, where time seems to stand still and humanity is forced to confront its own limits. This story not only stunned archaeologists and filmmakers alike, but also raised deeper questions about what may still lie hidden beneath the ice. How many secrets remain buried, undiscovered, in that frozen world? The journey of Mar-Sem Phim can be seen as a vivid example of the intersection between technology, courage, and humanity's vulnerability in the face of nature. And sometimes, it is precisely those things we believe to be lost that offer us the most profound lessons about life, existence, and our enduring desire to conquer the unknown. A bound mummy in a crouched position in Peru. In the middle of what appears to be an ordinary public square, where people pass by, children run and play, and everyday conversations take place, who would ever imagine that beneath the ground lies a secret that has slept undisturbed for more than 800 years? And when archaeologists in Peru accidentally touched that secret, history itself seemed to awaken, bringing with it a flood of chilling questions that sparked deep curiosity. If it were you, would you dare to stand in that square, knowing that an ancient mummy lay directly beneath your feet? Probably not. Even the bravest archaeologists found themselves trembling at the thought. This story begins at Cajamarquilla, an archaeological site located about 15.5 miles east of Lima, Peru's capital. While excavating an ancient underground structure at the site, a research team from the National University of San Marcos unexpectedly discovered a mummy that was preserved in near-perfect condition. But what made them freeze in place was not the discovery of the mummy itself. It was the position in which it was buried. The mummy was not laid flat, nor resting peacefully. Instead, it was tightly bound with ropes, its arms covering its face, as if it were trying to hide something from future generations. At this point, many questions naturally come to mind. Who was this person? Why were they buried in such a strange way? And most importantly, what did they experience before death? To answer these questions, experts proposed several theories. The most convincing one suggests that this burial represents a distinctive funerary ritual practiced by ancient communities in southern Peru. Analysis indicates that the mummy is at least 800 years old, dating back to a time even before the rise of the famous Inca civilization, the very civilization associated with Machu Picchu, a dream destination for travelers around the world. This means the person buried here lived in a world vastly different from ours, with beliefs, customs, and views on life and death that were entirely their own. The discoveries did not stop there. Inside the tomb, archaeologists also found numerous grave goods, including pottery, stone tools, and traces of plant materials. This clearly shows that the burial was not done hastily, but rather was part of a carefully planned and meaningful ritual. As researchers expanded their investigation, they uncovered another puzzling detail: seashells scattered around the exterior of the tomb. This may not sound unusual at first, but Cajamarquilla is located more than 15 miles from the coast. Shellfish do not exactly walk themselves inland. According to Peter van Dalen Luna, this suggests that after the individual's death, descendants or members of the community repeatedly return to the burial site, bringing food offerings and ceremonial gifts, including marine animals. In addition, bones of llamas, a common food source at the time, were also found, seemingly offered so the deceased could continue enjoying what they loved in life. When all these details are considered together, the tomb's location in the middle of a public square, the quantity of offerings, and the long-term care given to the burial, researchers reached a fairly confident conclusion. This was no ordinary individual. The young man, estimated to be between 25 and 30 years old, was likely a wealthy merchant or a person of high social status in Cajamarquilla, which was once a major commercial hub in pre-Columbian times. However, archaeologists have yet to determine exactly who this man was or why he was buried in such an unusual position. For this reason, scientists are now conducting more advanced analyses, including radiocarbon dating, in hopes of uncovering further details about the identity and life of this mysterious figure. So what about you? If you had the chance to travel back in time 800 years, would you dare to step into Cajamarquilla and witness a vanished civilization, one whose traces still lie silently beneath our feet to this very day? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. 4,000-year-old city in Saudi Arabia. Recently, a team of French and Saudi archaeologists discovered a 4,000-year-old ancient city hidden beneath an oasis in Saudi Arabia, in the northwestern region of the Arabian Peninsula. This city is not merely a relic of the past. It is a key that helps unlock our understanding of humanity's remarkable transition from a nomadic way of life to urban living. Led by French archaeologist Guillaume Charloux, the new study, published in the journal PLOS1, revealed a surprising truth. The ancient city of Al-Nata, once inhabited around 2400 BCE, had been concealed for thousands of years beneath the Khaybar oasis, a lush green area in the midst of a vast desert. This was a prosperous region that may have served as a developmental center for a relatively advanced Bronze Age community, at a time when other parts of the Arabian Peninsula were still arid lands inhabited mainly by nomadic pastoral tribes. So what protected this city from the ravages of time? The answer lies in the black volcanic basalt stones that surrounded the walls of Al-Nata, shielding its remains and leaving them largely untouched for thousands of years. This natural protection not only preserved the city, but also allowed archaeologists to clearly identify the solid foundations of about 50 houses, along with an encircling wall system stretching approximately 9 miles, a formidable fortification comparable to other ancient cities of the same era. Covering an area of about 6.4 acres, Al-Nata was far more than a simple village. It was likely home to around 500 people who lived and worked in houses that may have risen as high as 2 stories. Even more intriguing, archaeologists uncovered not only architectural structures, but also a cemetery containing unusual graves. Inside these graves, researchers found metal weapons such as axes and daggers, along with precious stones like agate, reflecting a society with a fairly advanced level of craftsmanship and technical skill. Pottery remains further suggest that this was a balanced and stable society, without extreme social stratification. So what makes Al-Nata truly special? It is its transformation from a nomadic community into an urban society. At the time Al-Nata was built, the region was still a harsh desert with no clear signs of permanent settlement. However, these recent discoveries clearly illustrate the evolution of human lifestyles, from nomadic herders to residents of organized, structured settlements. The fortifications of Al-Nata, reaching heights of up to about 16 feet, provide undeniable evidence of a strong local authority capable of governing and protecting a community that was gradually becoming urbanized. This raises an important question. Could Al-Nata be part of a broader chain of changes in human history? The discovery of this city may be a crucial key to understanding the transition from nomadic lifestyles to more stable communities, paving the way for the rise of urban civilizations in the region. From this perspective, we can begin to imagine the emergence of the very first cities, ushering in a new era in human history. Al-Nata is not just an archaeological site. It is a vivid testament to the process of urbanization, a process we are still striving to fully understand. Imagine that in the future, as we continue to dig deeper into these basalt stones and ancient foundations, stories of a long-lost civilization will keep emerging, revealing secrets of the past and teaching us invaluable lessons about the development of humanity. So what do you think about this discovery? Could Al-Nata be one of the foundational building blocks in the rise of ancient urban civilizations? 4,000 human remains in an underground cemetery beneath Berlin. Beneath the busy streets of modern central Berlin, directly under neatly paved roads and seemingly lifeless parking lots where traffic passes every day, an astonishing mystery has been uncovered, leaving the archaeological world in shock. In 2024, a team of researchers accidentally discovered a massive underground cemetery containing nearly 4,000 human remains buried beneath the ground. What is truly remarkable is that nearly half of these remains date from 1047 to 1299, placing them squarely within the most chaotic and darkest period of the Middle Ages. This is not just a large-scale archaeological discovery. It is a gateway into a lesser-known chapter of history, one that tells stories of death, suffering, and survival amid disease, warfare, and faith. Every skeleton resting underground tells a story. The remains of children reveal heartbreaking truths. Rickets, tuberculosis, scabies, clear signs of malnutrition and harsh living conditions. In an era when clean water was a luxury and medical knowledge was largely confined to ancient religious texts, death was a constant companion. Simply surviving to adulthood was nearly a miracle. The skeletons of adult men, however, reflect a different reality, one far more brutal and blood-soaked. Many died with unmistakable injuries caused by axes or swords. Cuts to the skull, broken arms and legs show that they faced violence, possibly from war, uprisings, or even public executions. There was no peaceful passing here, only violent deaths in an unforgiving age. Beyond physical suffering, social status and religious belief are etched into the soil itself, preserved in the remaining artifacts. Some skeletons were buried with distinctive items: a silver coin placed in the mouth, an ancient ritual meant to pay the ferryman to carry the soul across the river Styx into the afterlife, along with silver brooches, keys, and iron locks. These objects suggest that the deceased were not ordinary commoners. They may have been members of the local nobility, clergy, or individuals who held important roles within the religious community of the time. These traces confirm that this was not an anonymous mass grave, but a large communal burial site that clearly reflects social stratification from the 11th to the 13th centuries. This raises an important question. Why were so many people buried here? And why did a place that once served as the final resting ground for thousands vanish from historical records for centuries? Historians believe the site may once have been part of a medieval monastery or hospital, possibly linked to the Cistercian order, a religious order that held significant influence across Europe during that period. Such institutions were often associated with centers of healing and care for the poor, places where life and death coexisted in every corner. Now, after centuries buried beneath concrete and asphalt, the cemetery has resurfaced, like a whisper from the past, eager to tell an unfinished story. Medieval Berlin was not the major metropolis we know today. It was a newly forming, unstable region where power was divided among feudal lords and where war and disease could strike at any moment. The discovery of nearly 4,000 human remains reveals just how harsh life was at the time. More importantly, it serves as evidence of a complex society, one with hierarchy, religious belief, and burial rituals deeply rooted in medieval European culture. This discovery is not only a major archaeological milestone, but also a stark mirror reflecting the harsh contrast between past and present. We, modern people, walk, shop, and work every day on land that once served as the final resting place for thousands of souls. While today we benefit from advanced medicine, abundant food, and modern comforts, just a few centuries ago, cold, disease, and violence were constant threats, and human life was as fragile as a single thread. The excavation in Berlin has revealed not just a new archaeological site, but an entirely new chapter in the city's history. A chapter of unnamed individuals, buried suffering, and a past that was never fully told. This is not merely a journey beneath the ground. It is a journey into human memory, where bones still silently speak, telling the stories of those who once lived, once loved, once suffered, and who, through archaeology, are finally remembered once again. A Barbary pirate ship reappears after 4 centuries of disappearance. You have probably heard stories about Caribbean pirates, sea raiders sailing under black skull flags, roaming the oceans and burying treasure on deserted islands. But today, forget Jack Sparrow and Hollywood legends. What we are about to explore is a completely real chapter of history, dramatic, violent, and mysterious, about a group of pirates who spread terror across Europe for centuries, the Barbary pirates. And recently, for the first time in history, one of their ships has been discovered on the deep sea floor near the Strait of Gibraltar, revealing shocking truths about a past few people truly know. According to maritime archaeologist Sean Kingsley, editor-in-chief of the specialist journal WreckWatch and a member of the archaeological research team, this marks the first time a Barbary pirate ship has ever been found in this highly sensitive region. The wreck lies at a depth of approximately 2,720 feet, buried beneath seafloor sediment in the Strait of Gibraltar, one of the most important maritime routes in the world and the gateway between the Mediterranean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean. What makes this discovery especially remarkable is the identity of the vessel itself. The ship was a small warship known as a tartane, measuring about 46 feet in length, with 2 masts and triangular lateen sails made from a fabric known as tartanes, commonly used in the 17th and 18th centuries. This type of ship was highly maneuverable and could easily disguise itself as a fishing boat or merchant vessel, a familiar tactic used by Barbary pirates to deceive their targets. The Barbary pirates, also known as Ottoman pirates, began operating in the 15th century from Algiers, when the region was part of the Ottoman Empire. They not only seized ships at sea, but also carried out terrifying raids on coastal villages across Europe, kidnapping civilians and turning them into slaves or hostages for ransom. Their attacks plunged Mediterranean nations into fear for hundreds of years, especially in the Western Mediterranean, where trade routes and small fishing communities became prime targets. The newly discovered ship was heavily armed, carrying 4 large cannons, 10 swivel guns, and numerous muskets, more than enough firepower to threaten any merchant vessel in the region. The crew is believed to have numbered around 20 men, a small but ruthless and highly strategic force. In addition, researchers recovered an early telescopic spyglass believed to have been taken from a European ship. At the time, this was a revolutionary instrument, allowing pirates to spot targets from great distances. Several artifacts recovered from the wreck further confirmed that this was no ordinary merchant vessel. Glass bottles manufactured in Belgium or Germany, along with finely crafted teacups from Turkey, all clear evidence that the ship had taken part in large-scale looting and was carrying stolen goods. Despite its clever disguise, the quantity of weapons and plunder aboard leaves little doubt among archaeologists that this vessel belonged to the notorious Barbary pirates. Based on the ship's course and the location of the wreck, experts believe it was heading toward the Spanish coastline, a frequent victim of pirate attacks during that era. However, the ship never completed its journey. It may have been lost due to severe weather, an unrecorded naval battle, or a deadly accident at sea. No one knows exactly what caused it to sink. What is certain is that the ship, and all its secrets, lay undisturbed on the ocean floor for centuries until now. Ultimately, the fate of the Barbary pirates mirrored that of this newly discovered vessel. In the early 19th century, a coalition of major powers, including the United States, Sweden, and the Kingdom of Sicily, launched decisive military campaigns that finally ended Barbary pirate dominance in the Mediterranean. The pirates who once terrified all of Europe were defeated, leaving behind only blood-stained chapters in history books and the lingering smoke of gunpowder. What do you think about this discovery? Could it be that countless historical secrets are still waiting to be uncovered beneath the deep ocean? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below, and join us as we continue our journey to trace the past and uncover the world's untold mysteries. Human remains with a glass bottle, placed between the legs. In early 2021, while carrying out a major excavation at a site in the city of Hull, East Yorkshire, England, an area that had been used for burials between 1783 and 1861, archaeologists encountered a strange scene that remains unexplained to this day. Specifically, during the excavation of old graves on Castle Street in central Hull, part of a £355 million project known as the A63 scheme aimed at creating a new junction to reduce traffic congestion, a team of 70 professional archaeologists uncovered an unusual set of human remains. Unlike the thousands of skeletons previously excavated at the site, this particular burial included a blue glass bottle placed between the individual's legs. Inside the bottle was a mysterious brown liquid that has yet to be definitively identified. Even more intriguing, the bottle was engraved with the words Hull Infirmary, leading researchers to believe that it had been deliberately placed in the grave at the time of burial. It is known that this site is one of the largest post-medieval cemeteries ever excavated in northern England, and the discovery of the bottle left many archaeologists astonished. At the time, the excavation was overseen by Katie Dalman, who explained, "Finding artifacts such as rings, coins, clothing, and even tableware in burial grounds is fairly common, but this bottle is highly unusual. Not only was it placed in a very specific position between the person's legs, but it was also sealed and almost completely filled with liquid." The inscription on the bottle provided an important clue that helped uncover some of the secrets of this grave. Hull Infirmary was first established in a temporary facility in 1782, 1 year before the burial ground opened, and was later relocated to a building on Prospect Street in 1784. Katie added that researchers have since learned more about the identity of the deceased. She was a woman in her 60s at the time of her death and had suffered from rickets and osteoporosis during her lifetime. Further tests were conducted to determine the nature of the mysterious liquid. Samples were sent to specialists at Nottingham Trent University for high-tech analysis. The results showed the presence of sodium, potassium, and phosphorus, leading scientists to conclude that the liquid could be urine. However, this raised even more questions. What would that mean? Why was it placed there? And if it was not urine, what else could it be? So far, these questions have continued to puzzle both archaeologists and scientists. According to Katie, another hypothesis is also being explored. The liquid may have been a phosphate-containing medicinal drink. Such beverages were popular in the 19th century when they were marketed as cures for various illnesses, including tuberculosis. At this stage, however, nothing can be stated with certainty. Researchers are continuing further tests in the hope of arriving at a definitive answer in the near future. The Ancient Kingdom, Beneath the Earth, Shambala. Many mystical religions speak of an ideal place on Earth, a region untouched by human greed or corruption, where spiritually enlightened beings reside. In Buddhism, the legendary kingdom of Shambhala is considered one such place. Many believe this kingdom lies deep beneath the Earth's surface. For thousands of years, Tibet has fascinated those drawn to mystery and spirituality. Among its legends, Shambhala is said to be hidden beyond the distant northern mountains of the Himalayas, long considered a dream destination for explorers worldwide. Shambhala's allure is heightened by Tibetan mystical tales describing a kingdom that mysteriously disappeared. To this day, the enigmatic stories surrounding this lost kingdom continue to inspire countless captivating narratives. In his book Beasts, Men, and Gods, author Ferdinand Ossendowski recounts his experiences in Russia during the Civil War and his subsequent journey to Mongolia. In chapter 46, titled The Kingdom Beneath the Earth, he describes a startling incident. His Mongolian guides suddenly stopped, leapt off their camels, and began to pray, repeating strange words. Later in the book, Ossendowski claimed to have discovered the secret of secrets, the legend of the underground kingdom. He described seeing a cave, or what he called a smoke gate, where locals told him that an ancient tribe had fled into what they called the kingdom beneath the earth. Eventually, after much investigation, Ossendowski learned that the truth about this mysterious kingdom was linked to Shambhala. He wrote, "It's not something too strange. The two largest oceans of the East and West were once two continents. Now they lie beneath the sea, but their people went into the underground kingdom. There were many people from many different nations. In more recent times, this mysterious subterranean place has been identified as the underground city of Agartha, which many believe is another name for the mystical Shambala. Ossendowski described it as a location of advanced technological wonders, including flying discs and the residence of high monks, scientists, and superhuman beings with astonishing powers. However, he did not claim that Shambala and Agartha were the same. According to him, Agartha's underground world is vast, with Shambala considered its capital, though it apparently features purely Western-style architecture. The gates leading to this underground world are said to exist at the poles, in caves, and in honeycomb-like tunnels across the globe. Some believe that Shambala or Agartha may represent a civilization inheriting the remnants of the lost continents of Lemuria and Atlantis. Ossendowski also warned that the people of this civilization possess immense power. If provoked, they could reportedly obliterate the entire surface of the human planet and turn it into a desert. Yet, are these ancient legends and tales, or the underground city itself, based in reality? And when will the mysteries and prophecies of Shambala finally be solved? To this day, it remains a profound and enduring enigma. A 5,000-year-old whale fossil found in mainland Thailand. Imagine one day, far inland, several miles from the current coastline, people unexpectedly stumble upon the remains of a massive creature that once roamed the oceans. This is not a legend or a Hollywood movie script. It's a real discovery that has captured the attention of the scientific community. In Samut Sakhon province, about 7.5 miles west of Bangkok, experts discovered a nearly intact fossilized skeleton of a whale, measuring 39 feet long, lying undisturbed beneath sediment layers for thousands of years. Initial analysis identifies it as a bride's whale, a species that can weigh between 13 to 28 tons when alive. Its skull alone measures nearly 10 feet long, accompanied by all major bones, including fins, ribs, vertebrae, and shoulder bones. What makes this fossil particularly remarkable is its exceptional preservation, which is extremely rare, especially in Asia, where whale fossils are scarce, and finding one nearly intact is extraordinary. During excavation, researchers also discovered traces of other organisms surrounding the whale skeleton, including barnacles, crabs, shark teeth, and stingrays. While these details may seem minor, for archaeologists and paleontologists, they are crucial pieces of evidence that help reconstruct an ancient marine ecosystem that once thrived here. Experts describe the find as rare in both quantity and quality. The whale bones will soon undergo radiocarbon dating to determine a more precise age. Preliminary estimates suggest the whale lived around 5,000 years ago, during a time when natural conditions and marine environments were very different from today. Why is this discovery significant? According to researchers, the fossil provides insights into the life of bride's whales in the past, their size, behavior, and habitat. It may even reveal how the species adapted over time to changes in Earth's climate and environment. Beyond biology, the fossil also offers valuable information about geology and paleontology, such as ancient sea levels, sediment types, and the contemporaneous marine community. One puzzling question is, how did a whale, a creature that lives in temperate, tropical, and warm waters, end up so far inland? The answer lies in geological history. Over the past 10,000 years, tectonic activity raised this area by about 13 feet above sea level. In other words, the site where the fossil was found was once shallow sea, suitable for whales to swim and live. Imagine it. A colossal ocean creature that once glided through waves now rests quietly beneath the land where humans walk. This discovery is more than a scientific story. It's a reminder that Earth is constantly changing in ways we cannot always predict. And who knows? Beneath the ground we stand on, countless other secrets may still be waiting to be uncovered. The 1,300-year-old golden throne of a powerful Moche queen. Imagine standing in the arid lands of northern Peru, where wind and sand have hidden history for over a millennium. It was here, in October 2024, that archaeologists revealed a discovery that stunned the academic world. A 1,300-year-old golden throne room, adorned with vivid murals depicting a powerful Moche queen. Remarkably, though the room has been uncovered, the queen's remains have yet to be found. leaving a major mystery waiting to be solved. The throne room was discovered at the Panyamarca archaeological site and has been dated to the 7th century CE, a period when the Moche civilization was flourishing. The Moche inhabited northern Peru from around 350 to 850 CE, renowned for their complex architectural constructions, elaborate tombs, and exquisite art, particularly ceramics depicting human faces with astonishing realism. All of these achievements were created in a society without writing, making each surviving artifact a language that tells stories to future generations. What makes this find especially significant is that it may be the first throne room ever recorded for a female ruler at Panyamarca, or even in all of ancient Peru. While historians have known that many queens ruled pre-Inca Peru, evidence of their spaces of power has rarely been so clearly documented. This discovery opens an entirely new window into history. The throne itself is made of clay, yet it is far from ordinary. Inside, archaeologists found greenstone beads and strands of human hair, sparking curiosity among scientists. They believe these hairs may have belonged to the queen herself. Researchers are now planning DNA testing to verify this hypothesis. If confirmed, it would be one of the rare pieces of evidence directly linking a female ruler to her space of power. The murals inside the throne room are equally remarkable. Images of the ruler appear on pillars, walls, and even on the throne itself. Each painting tells a different story about the Moche queen. One depicts her wearing a crown and raising a cup as if performing a sacred ritual. Another shows her holding a scepter, while a procession of men bearing textiles and offerings approaches in clear homage. Most striking of all is the depiction of the queen seated on her throne, conversing with a half-human, half-bird figure, a symbol of the deep connection between earthly authority and the spiritual realm in Moche culture. In fact, female rulership was not uncommon in ancient Moche society. Researcher Koons notes that female leaders were fairly prevalent in the Moche civilization as well as in later northern Peruvian dynasties. However, most evidence of their power until now came primarily from tombs, the most famous being Señora de Cao, the mummified body of a Moche noblewoman buried with intricate jewelry, weapons, and tools for throwing spears and darts. Thus, the discovery of this throne room not only adds a new piece to the historical puzzle, but also compels us to reconsider the role and status of women in ancient civilizations of the Americas. And who knows, beneath the layers of soil at Panyamarca, there may still be other secrets waiting to tell the story of a queen who wielded supreme power 1,300 years ago. Quite possible, isn't it? Archaeologists found a strange human skeleton. DNA results left scientists speechless. 1.9 million-year-old skeleton with skin in South Africa. Recently, scientists announced a groundbreaking discovery after finding two nearly complete skeletons dating back 1.9 million years, with remnants of skin still preserved on one of them. The discovery was made in the Malapa Cave in South Africa. This marks the first time in history that a fossil belonging to a human ancestor has retained soft tissue, opening a golden opportunity for scientists to examine ancient DNA and trace the path of human evolution with an unprecedented level of accuracy. Leading this research is Professor Chris Stringer, one of the world's foremost experts on human origins at the Natural History Museum in London. He was also the scientist who named this extraordinary specimen Australopithecus sediba, a name that is now making waves throughout the scientific community. What is truly astonishing is that although Sediba possessed a brain size and several physical traits similar to those of great apes, its fingers, frontal brain region, teeth, pelvis, and legs clearly display features strikingly similar to modern humans. It is a skeleton that seems to bridge two worlds, bearing the form of an ancient ancestor while revealing the earliest steps on the path toward becoming Homo sapiens, humans as we are today. This is not merely an archaeological discovery. It is a living clue that helps fill a critical gap in the history of human evolution. Based on these unique anatomical characteristics, many scientists believe that Australopithecus sediba may represent a crucial missing link in the evolutionary transition from ape to human. Despite its small brain and relatively short stature, the evolutionary changes seen in finer details, such as the hands and pelvis, point to an undeniable transformation. Professor Stringer has emphasized that Sediba plays an extremely important role in shaping experts' understanding of the human evolutionary journey. Today, these two invaluable skeletons are on display at the Natural History Museum in London. where millions of visitors are gathering to witness firsthand the remarkable evidence of one of humanity's oldest evolutionary links. What would you think if, one day, from the remaining fragments of skin, we were able to reconstruct the appearance of our own ancestors? It's a difficult question, isn't it? But I believe that someday in the not-too-distant future, our scientists will make it possible. 2,500-year-old skeleton reveals a brutal punishment in ancient China. Thousands of years ago, in ancient China, committing a crime was far more than simply being locked behind cold iron bars. The laws of that era were so severe that for offenses considered serious, people could be forced to pay with a part of their own bodies. And you may not know this, but among the punishments that continue to send chills down the spine of later generations, limb amputation was regarded as a sentence that involved no immediate bloodshed, yet haunted the condemned for the rest of their lives. This punishment was commonly imposed for crimes such as evading duties, theft, or even acts of disrespect toward authority, and in many cases, it was used as an alternative to the death penalty. A study published in the Journal of Archaeological Science and Anthropology revealed a surprising story involving two men who lived during the Zhou dynasty, roughly between 1050 and 221 BCE, in what is now Henan province in central China. What archaeologists uncovered from their skeletal remains has forced many to rethink how we imagine ancient societies. According to Dr. Qian Wang, a co-author of the study, the archaeological evidence shows that punishment by limb amputation was neither random nor as barbaric as many people assume. On the contrary, it was a well-organized process, carried out with precise techniques, and even included post-punishment medical care intended to help the punished individuals survive and recover. Just imagine that. Thousands of years ago, when medicine was still in its infancy, people had already considered something like aftercare following punishment. Strange, yet deeply thought-provoking, isn't it? Detailed bone analysis revealed that one man had his right leg amputated, while the other lost his left leg. This detail was not accidental. According to historical records, the removal of the right leg was typically reserved for more serious crimes than the removal of the left. This has led to the hypothesis that the two men may have committed different offenses and may even have been connected to one another within the social structure of their time. Even more telling is the fact that the cut marks on the bones were clean and precise, showing no signs of repeated hacking with crude weapons. This indicates that the punishment was carried out using methods closer to surgical procedures rather than uncontrolled acts of violence. The bones also display evidence of controlled healing, suggesting that both men survived for years after their sentences were carried out. Based on estimates, they lived around 550 BCE. The man who lost his right leg died at approximately 45 years of age, while the man who lost his left leg lived to around 55 years old. The way they were buried suggests that their social status may have been higher than that of ordinary farmers, possibly as low-ranking officials or scholars. This makes the story even more remarkable, as it demonstrates that the law of the time showed little mercy, even toward those with education or social standing. The research team also examined other possible explanations for the amputations, such as congenital deformities, medical treatment, or ritual sacrifice. However, there was no evidence that their bodies had adapted to a lifelong disability, nor were there signs of religious rituals. After comparing the wounds, the level of violence, and the historical context, the scientists reached the most reasonable conclusion. These amputations were the result of judicial punishment. This form of punishment is believed to have originated during the Xia dynasty and was recorded in ancient texts such as the Rites of Zhou, while also being supported by archaeological remains found at Erlitou in the Yellow River Valley, China. By the Western Zhou period, the practice had become institutionalized and widely enforced. Remains of an execution victim from 2,000 years ago. Hidden beneath layers of soil once thought to belong only to modern railway lines, history sometimes resurfaces in ways that send chills down the spine. And so it was that, during surveys carried out for the construction of the HS2 high-speed rail project, which will connect London with major cities such as Birmingham, Manchester, and Leeds, archaeologists uncovered a dark mystery at Welwick Farm, near the town of Wendover in Buckinghamshire, England. A set of human remains was discovered, and from the very position in which the body lay, something felt deeply unsettling. The skeleton dates back to the Iron Age, approximately 2,000 years ago. What immediately caught archaeologists' attention was the man's burial posture. He had been buried face down in a ditch, with his hands tightly bound and positioned behind his back, beneath the pelvis. This was not a conventional burial, nor did it show any sign of a respectful funerary ritual. On the contrary, it strongly suggests an execution, or at the very least, a violent death intended as punishment. One cannot help but wonder what this man endured in the final moments of his life. At present, osteologists are conducting detailed analyses of every remaining trace on the skeleton. Bone trauma, signs of restraint, and the burial environment itself may all serve as clues to the cause of death. Every fracture, every broken fragment is like an unfinished sentence in a story that has stretched across 2 millennia. The site revealed even more surprises when archaeologists discovered a massive circular arrangement of wooden posts measuring approximately 213 feet in diameter, aligned with the winter solstice. This structure immediately brings to mind Stonehenge in Wiltshire, one of the most iconic monuments of prehistoric Britain. The presence of this wooden circle suggests that the area may once have been an important center for religious rituals, spiritual beliefs, or sacred gatherings during the Iron Age. The combination of a skeleton bearing signs of execution and a large ritual structure raises an even heavier question. Was this death connected to ancient ceremonial practices, or was it simply the result of a harsh judicial punishment imposed by society at the time? Dr. Rachel Wood, an archaeologist involved in the HS2 project, stated that this discovery demonstrates that Buckinghamshire is not only geographically significant, but also a witness to a long continuum of history stretching from the Neolithic period through the Iron Age and into the Middle Ages. In addition to the mysterious remains and the wooden circle, the project also uncovered another grave, this one buried in a lead-lined coffin. Lead was a rare and valuable material in ancient times, clearly indicating a stark distinction in social status. On one side, there may have been a victim of violence or punishment. On the other, an individual laid to rest with care and costly materials. Within the same area, this contrast paints a vivid picture of a highly complex ancient society. According to Mike Court, lead archaeologist of the HS2 project, these discoveries represent an invaluable treasure, not only for understanding the history of Buckinghamshire, but also for broadening our perspective on the cultural heritage of England as a whole. Every skeleton, every structure uncovered is a crucial piece of the puzzle, helping us better imagine how ancient people lived, what they believed, how they divided social classes, and ultimately, how they died. Fascinating, isn't it? The 5,400-year-old remains of a young woman found embedded in a cave wall. You know, there are some archaeological discoveries that are chilling enough just to hear about, and the story of the so-called isolated skull in Marcel Lubin's cave near the city of Bologna, Italy, is one of them. Back in 2015, when scientists ventured deep into this cave, they did not uncover a collective burial site, as is common in many ancient Italian caves. Instead, they found only a single human remain, the skull of a young woman, lying alone in an extremely high and precarious position on a sheer cave wall. That image alone was enough to raise a flood of unsettling questions. Reaching the skull was no simple task. Archaeologists were forced to construct an artificial climbing system measuring approximately 39 feet in length just to get close to the discovery site. Even then, they had to use long poles to carefully reach and excavate the skull. Because of this highly unusual placement, the discovery was given its haunting name, the isolated skull. According to Live Science, many caves in Italy were used in the past as collective burial sites. Yet Marcel Lubin's cave contained no other human remains, making the skull's solitary presence even more difficult to explain. A multi-year research project led by Dr. Maria Giovanna of the University of Bologna gradually revealed details that made the story even more mysterious. Bone analysis showed that the skull belonged to a young woman who died at an age estimated between 24 and 35 years old. The surface of the bone bears distinctive marks indicating that the soft tissues were deliberately removed after death. This does not resemble a natural decomposition process, but instead suggests a complex funerary ritual, possibly tied to ancient spiritual or religious beliefs. However, not all of the marks on the skull point to ritual activity. Other forms of damage, combined with the way the skull appears to be almost fused to the cave wall, tell a very different story. Scientists believe that the remains were washed away from their original burial site by natural processes. At the time, the area was not yet the vast cave system we see today, but rather a sinkhole at ground level. Geological analysis indicates that over the course of approximately 1,370 years, rainwater and flowing water continuously carried sediment down into this sinkhole. Over time, layers of minerals built up around the skull, forming what is known as flowstone, which gradually encased the human bone. As a result, the skull remained trapped underground while the surrounding landscape continued to change. Slowly, beneath the sinkhole, a large cave formed, expanding both horizontally and vertically. In contrast, the sinkhole opening above was eventually completely buried by mud and sediment. As erosion and cave expansion continued, the skull was carried from its original position through the main cave passage and eventually became lodged high along the cave wall. Only a small portion of it remained visible, making it appear as though the skull had been embedded directly into the rock, a surreal sight that is difficult for the modern mind to comprehend. So in the end, what is more frightening? The mysterious ritual the young woman may have undergone after death, or the silent journey her skull endured for more than a millennium deep beneath the earth? What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below this video. Red fingerprints and a self-portrait of another human species. In the dim shadows of San Lazaro Cave, nestled among the ancient rocky hills of Segovia, Spain, an ancient secret has awoken after more than 43,000 years of slumber. Amid layers of time and limestone dyed with history, scientists uncovered a strange trace, a fingerprint in red, like dried blood, clearly imprinted on the surface of an unusual stone. Not a fingerprint of Homo sapiens, but of a lost relative, a Neanderthal, another human species that once shared the earth with us during the Ice Age. The stone itself was not naturally part of the cave. It is a piece of granite, roughly 6 inches long, rounded and rough like a giant potato, yet carrying a powerful, wordless message. Near one end of the stone are faint depressions resembling a pair of primitive eyebrows. Directly below, the red handprint is deliberately placed, not random, but intentional. The red color comes from ochre, an iron oxide mineral that ancient humans used in rituals, painting, and burial practices. The combination of the chosen pigment and the stone's shape led archaeologists to an intriguing hypothesis. This may be a crude piece of art, a primitive bust depicting the shape of a human. It could represent a member of the community, a mythological figure, or perhaps even the individual who left the fingerprint, a deeply personal statement of ancient imagination. The discovery was later published by the Spanish National Research Council, CSYC, and documented in the journal Archaeological and Anthropological Sciences, raising haunting questions about the Neanderthal mind. Have we underestimated their capacity for symbolic thought? Once dismissed as crude, underdeveloped, and unimaginative, Neanderthals are increasingly proving they possessed complex inner lives, the ability to imagine, express, and perhaps even create art much earlier than previously believed. San Lazaro Cave is no random site. Archaeological evidence shows that Neanderthals lived here between 44,000 and 41,000 years ago, very close to the time of their extinction. The surrounding area contains no signs of Homo sapiens, reinforcing the hypothesis that the Neanderthals themselves made this mark. That they transported the stone from elsewhere, selected a uniquely shaped rock, and used red ochre to leave their imprint demonstrates a remarkable level of symbolic cognition, something long thought exclusive to modern humans. This discovery forces scientists to rethink the evolutionary narrative. Neanderthals were not just hunters living in caves, they dreamed, created, and left their mark, literally placing their hand on stone as a statement of self. After tens of thousands of years, that mark still speaks to us, in color, form, and eternal silence. Perhaps in that moment, a Neanderthal imagined themselves, placed their hand on the stone, and said, "I existed, I thought, I felt." And so, even as time has swept away an entire species, their memory endures, vivid, red, and profoundly human. 2,000-year-old tomb of a woman wearing precious jewelry. You've probably heard the ancient tales of the mighty Roman civilization, of heroic warriors and mysterious noblewomen. But have you ever imagined that, beneath the ancient soil and stone of the Caucasus Mountains, a secret had been sleeping for 2,000 years? A tomb holding the remains of a woman adorned with priceless jewelry, sparkling with gold and rare glass? If you haven't, Let me take you on a journey into the strange and captivating story of this mysterious woman. She was discovered in a family tomb in the North Caucasus, alongside a warrior and 2 other men. While her identity remains a mystery, what was found in her grave reveals a great deal. She was no ordinary woman. That much is clear from the extremely valuable jewelry buried with her. 2 rings were exquisitely crafted from white glass with thin gold filaments, set with a layer of dark glass in the center. These are unmistakably Roman-style pieces, and according to expert Kadieva, at that time, they would have been luxury items unimaginable to the people of the North Caucasus, as glass was not produced in the region. Her shoes were also decorated with glass beads and deep red carnelian stones, a gem long considered a symbol of power and prestige. Most striking of all was her gold pendant, set with a purple quartz stone, the final piece of jewelry she took with her to the afterlife. These details led archaeologists to believe that she was not just a noblewoman, but possibly the wife or close relative of an Alans warrior, a people who migrated to the region during the 1st and 2nd centuries CE. Archaeologist Kadieva explained, "Wealthy warriors from the North Caucasus often gave expensive jewelry to the people they loved most. The woman in this tomb was likely the mother, wife, or sister of a powerful warrior, and quite possibly the wife of a high-ranking chieftain. Yet the mystery does not end there. While no one knows the exact cause of death for the 4 individuals in the tomb, the condition of the remains suggests they died at the same time, raising even more questions about what happened. Was this the aftermath of a battle, a ritual sacrifice, or a tragedy of love and loyalty? The answer remains unknown." 500-year-old girl mummy preserves organs, holds secrets never before revealed. At an altitude of over 22,000 feet, where the air is so thin that just breathing is a challenge, it's hard for modern humans to imagine that hundreds of years ago, the Inca carried children to the summit of Lulai-Laco volcano. Yet on March 16, 1999, a team of scientists led by Johann Reinhard made one of the most shocking discoveries in the history of archaeology: 3 Inca child mummies lying in the frozen soil along the Chile-Argentina border. What stunned scientists was not only the location of the find, but also the unbelievable level of preservation of the bodies. The oldest child, named the Lulai-Laco maiden, was approximately 13 to 15 years old. The other 2 children, a boy and a girl, were about 4 to 5 years old and were called Lulai-Laco boy and lightning girl. When scientists first saw the body of the older girl, they could hardly believe their eyes. Her face was calm, her posture slightly bent forward, a light shawl draped over her shoulders, long black hair and skin almost untouched by time. She looked as if she were simply sleeping amid the eternal cold of the high mountain. The autopsy that followed only added to the wonder. There were no signs of violence, and her internal organs, from lungs and liver to the brain, remained intact. Even more astonishing, blood was still present in her heart. After extensive analysis, scientists determined that all 3 mummies were about 500 years old, and the cause of death was likely due to consuming a substance that induced a trance-like state before dying in the cold. But why were these 3 children sacrificed in this way? Years of research eventually revealed the answer. They were Inca ritual offerings to the gods, carried out around the 1400s when the Inca civilization was at its peak. Before being sacrificed, the children were carefully prepared, even fattened with a diet rich in potatoes, corn, vegetables, and dried llama meat, foods associated with agriculture and abundance, essentially offering the gods the best of human nourishment. Forensic analysis of the Lulai-Laco maiden's hair revealed another chilling detail. Months before her death, she had consumed large amounts of alcohol and coca leaves. This suggests that when she was taken to the mountaintop, she was in an intoxicated state, likely to reduce fear and pain during the ritual. Coca leaves, the raw material for cocaine, together with alcohol, were an integral part of preparing her for a sacred Inca sacrifice. Yet the greatest value that modern science gained from the Lulai-Laco maiden is not just a deeper understanding of Inca rituals or their masterful mummification techniques. During examination, researchers discovered Mycobacterium tuberculosis, the bacteria that causes pulmonary tuberculosis, in her body. Detecting pathogens in ancient humans is not new, but thanks to this exceptional preservation, modern medicine had the chance to take a crucial step forward. Previously, confirming whether an ancient person actually had a disease was very difficult because pathogen DNA could come from the surrounding environment. However, while studying the 3 Inca children, Professor Angelique Corthals from John Jay College, New York, developed a new method, analyzing proteins preserved in mummy tissue. This approach is far more accurate and has since been widely applied in archaeology, medicine, and forensic investigations. Professor Corthals believes that this discovery could open the door to solving historical medical mysteries, such as why the 1918 flu pandemic caused such devastation. At the same time, it helps modern humans better understand and prepare for potential future disease threats. As you can see, archaeology is sometimes far from boring. It connects the past and present in ways that are truly extraordinary. Nearly 900-year-old woman's skeleton buried in wooden boat. Hidden among the majestic Chapelco Mountains of Patagonia, Argentina, the Nuin Antug burial site has long been considered sacred land by the Mapuche people. And it was precisely in this remote place, seemingly occupied only by mountain winds and ancient forests, that archaeologists recently uncovered a grave that challenges our understanding of ancient South American burial practices. The skeleton of a young woman, buried in a wooden boat, had lain undisturbed beneath the earth for nearly 9 centuries. Initial analysis determined that the remains belonged to a woman who had died between 17 and 25 years old. While the cause of death remains unknown, the manner in which she was interred tells a very different story. This young woman was not casually buried. She was carefully placed inside a wooden boat, accompanied by valuable artifacts. Next to her lay a ceramic vessel and nearly 10 freshwater mollusk shells, items that were clearly intentional parts of the burial ritual. The most striking feature is the wooden boat itself. Crafted from the trunk of a Chilean cedar tree, a durable and precious wood, the boat was hollowed out using fire, a technique demanding both skill and patience. During excavation, archaeologists found nearly 600 charred wood fragments around the grave. This suggests that the boat's creation was not only practical, but also ritually significant. Clearly, this was no ordinary burial. It was a carefully prepared rite for the final journey of the deceased. Radiocarbon dating of the bones indicates that the woman died around the year 1142, long before the Spanish set foot in South America. This finding debunks the previous assumption that boat burials only appeared during the colonial period. In reality, this ritual existed in pre-Columbian times and was an important part of the spiritual life of indigenous communities, particularly the Mapuche, the largest indigenous group in South America. Looking at this wooden boat, many may draw comparisons to Viking ship burials in Europe, where warriors and leaders were sent off in longboats. However, the difference lies in the spiritual meaning. For the Mapuche, the boat was not a symbol of power or conquest, but a vessel to help the soul of the deceased cross the boundary between worlds. According to ancient Mapuche legends, the soul of the dead must undertake a dangerous journey to reach the afterlife, and during this journey, they are guided by a mythical boatman. The items placed in the boat, like the ceramic vessel and mollusk shells, may have been offerings to this guide. Notably, the boatman was traditionally compensated with lanka, a rare blue stone symbolizing gratitude and the hope for a safe passage of the soul. The discovery at Nuin Antug not only illuminates an ancient burial practice, but also provides a rare window into the rich spiritual world of the Mapuche people. In the wild mountains of Patagonia, the wooden boat buried deep underground quietly tells a story of belief, death, and the soul's journey to the afterlife nearly 900 years ago. And as layers of soil are lifted, the past rises once more, leaving modern observers to wonder, how many more mysterious journeys are still waiting to be discovered? 250 human remains, sealed on an Egyptian cliff for 4,200 years. Amid the arid lands of southern Egypt, where sun and wind have eroded nearly every trace of time, a secret has remained hidden for thousands of years on a sheer cliff face, almost entirely unnoticed. It wasn't until archaeologists began surveying the Al-Hamadiyya necropolis near the city of Sohag that a scene capable of stunning the scientific world slowly emerged. About 250 ancient tombs carved directly into the cliffside, stacked like a city of the dead suspended in mid-air. According to Muhammad, head of the Central Antiquities Department of Upper Egypt, these tombs contain a wealth of artifacts dating from roughly 2345 to 2181 BCE. Inside the burial chambers, archaeologists found shards of pottery, intact ceramic vessels, nearly pristine plaster objects, and numerous offerings carefully placed for the deceased. With an age exceeding 4,000 years, each item here carries immense historical and archaeological value. What surprises many is that over all this time, the necropolis has remained almost completely untouched by tomb robbers. The reason lies in its unexpected location. Unlike most Egyptian tombs buried deep underground, the Al-Hamadiyya graves were cut directly into the vertical rock face. From a distance, they blend almost seamlessly into the natural terrain, making it extremely difficult for treasure hunters to detect them. The tombs are arranged in multiple rows across the cliff, forming a complex burial ensemble. Based on the size of the chambers and the quantity of funerary goods, researchers believe these were not royal tombs. They do not compare to the pyramids or the lavish underground tombs of elite nobles. Yet the careful craftsmanship of the architecture shows that those buried here were certainly not ordinary commoners. The burial chambers are finely carved, thoughtfully arranged, and provide distinct spaces for placing bodies and offerings. This indicates that the occupants held significant social status, likely belonging to wealthy families, officials, or local leaders. This hypothesis is further supported by the identification of Al-Hamadiyya as the resting place of leaders and officials from the city of Akhmim, once one of ancient Egypt's most important administrative centers. The area was also revered by the ancient Egyptians as the Valley of Min, the god of fertility and rebirth. Burial here was not only an honor, but also reflected a strong belief in the afterlife. For them, death was not an end, but a gateway to a new cycle of life. Even more remarkably, archaeologists note that some of the oldest cliffside tombs may date back 4,200 years, meaning this necropolis was used over multiple generations, witnessing the rise and fall of an entire region. Each tomb is not only a resting place, but also a piece of the larger social mosaic of ancient Egyptian life, hanging before our eyes all along, yet we never looked up to see it. The Renswuren bog mummy, a violent death buried for over 2,000 years. When it comes to archaeology, some discoveries don't just spark curiosity, they send chills down your spine, as if whispers from a distant past are reaching out to you. The story of the Renswuren bog mummy is one of those cases. It begins in a dark, murky bog near the city of Kiel, Germany, where in 1871, the nearly perfectly preserved body of an ancient man was suddenly uncovered. There was no coffin, no tomb, only cold, unyielding peat and the silent passage of time. What makes the Renswuren mummy extraordinary is not just its age, but how it has been preserved to this day. The acidic, oxygen-poor environment of the bog acted as a natural safe, protecting his skin, hair, and many other details of his body. When discovered, he was far from being a skeleton. He retained a nearly complete form, enough to astonish anyone who saw him. From the moment of discovery, a flood of questions arose. Who was this man? When did he live? And why did his life end in such a desolate place? To answer these questions, scientists conducted meticulous tests on his bones, soft tissues, and skull. The results revealed that the mummy belonged to a man who lived around the 1st or 2nd century BCE, over 2,000 years ago. At that time, living into one's 40s or 50s was fairly common, and it turns out Renswuren had died within that age range. But the most haunting truth lies in the cause of death. This was not a natural death from age or illness. On the skull, experts discovered a severe injury forming a distinct triangular hole. The evidence indicated he had been struck on the head with a hard object, likely a crude ancient weapon, with immense force. The blow was fatal, and it is almost certain that he endured excruciating pain in his final moments. This detail immediately sparked countless theories. Was this a murder? A revenge attack? Or perhaps a ritual sacrifice tied to ancient beliefs? The fact that his body was found in a bog adds another layer of intrigue. In many ancient European cultures, bogs were considered sacred spaces, often associated with offerings or sacrifices to the gods. If this were the case, Renswuren may have been a victim of the spiritual and ritual practices of his era. From a body buried in mud, the Renswuren bog mummy has become a vivid witness to history. It not only tells the story of one individual, but also reflects the harshness, violence, and mysterious beliefs of ancient society. Even today, despite all of modern science, the story of this man's death remains a profound mystery, challenging the curiosity of anyone fascinated by the past. A tomb 100 times richer than Qin Shi Huang's lost for nearly 800 years. Throughout human history, few names carry as much mystery as Genghis Khan, the great Mongol emperor who conquered nearly the entire known world, building an empire that stretched from Asia to Europe. Yet, even after almost 800 years, his tomb remains an unsolved mystery that continues to puzzle archaeologists. So why is Genghis Khan's resting place so enigmatic? Let's embark on a journey to trace the legacy of the most powerful man in human history. It begins with his death in 1227, a mysterious event that remains one of the greatest unanswered questions for historians. Some believe he died from an arrow wound to the knee, as recounted by Marco Polo, the first European to travel across Asia in the Middle Ages. However, according to the secret history of the Mongols, another theory suggests he fell from his horse while hunting. Just like the mystery of his death, the location of his tomb continues to elude modern scholars. Throughout his life of conquest, Genghis Khan and his famous cavalry swept from Asia to Europe, plundering and ruling countless wealthy cities. His tomb must therefore contain unimaginable treasures, a vast collection of cultural artifacts from both East and West. In fact, his tomb is said to be 100 times richer than the famous tomb of Qin Shi Huang in Shanxi, China. The only certainty recorded in historical documents is that Genghis Khan's body was returned to Mongolia after his death. Many Mongolian historians believe he was buried near the Onon River, close to the Altai Mountains, a resting place for other Mongol kings. But all of this is speculative. Some suggest his tomb might lie in the Khenti Mountains, a region deeply connected to his youth, a place where he once stood atop a peak, praying to the heavens for the strength to unify the Mongol tribes. And indeed, every wish he made came true. Yet, despite numerous expeditions, from Chinese archaeological teams to large-scale searches funded by National Geographic, the result has always been zero. Why is locating Genghis Khan's tomb so difficult? One striking hypothesis is that his loyal soldiers created intricate layers of protection, erasing all traces. After his burial, thousands of horses were driven over the site to destroy any evidence, and those who participated in the burial were executed to safeguard the secret. Every clue seems to have been wiped clean, leaving the tomb shrouded in mystery. Even so, searches continue relentlessly. Archaeologists press on despite resistance from local Mongolians and strange phenomena, such as snakes reportedly attacking when researchers approach the site. These tales only add to the mystique surrounding Genghis Khan's tomb. One fact historians unanimously acknowledge is this: no matter where his tomb lies, it remains part of the epic story of a man who changed the course of human history. Genghis Khan was not just a warrior. He is a symbol of power, intelligence, and mystery. So what do you think? Will his tomb remain forever hidden in the shadows? Or will the secret of the great emperor's final resting place one day be revealed? Share your thoughts in the comments below and join the conversation. 2,000-year-old tomb of the guardian of the underworld. In October 2023, a 2,000-year-old tomb was discovered in Giugliano, Naples, Italy. And what makes it truly remarkable is that it contains a mural depicting Cerberus, the legendary three-headed dog from Greek mythology, known as the hunting dog of Hades, tasked with guarding the gates of the underworld. Because of this, experts did not hesitate to nickname the tomb of Cerberus, adding an extra layer of mystery and intrigue to the story. The mural depicts Cerberus's final moment, when it is captured by Heracles, the famous Greek hero, marking the conclusion of one of his 12 great labors. It's a powerful image, tied to a legendary feat, but strangely, the individual buried in this tomb is not a mythological figure or fantastical creature, but a human being. So why does the tomb bear the symbol of Cerberus? And what connection did the deceased have with the three-headed dog? As experts continued excavating and studying the tomb, they discovered 2 stone coffins inside. One of these was examined using a miniature camera, allowing archaeologists to look inside without damaging the remains. The result revealed a well-preserved human body, wrapped in a shroud, surrounded by a collection of grave goods, including unguentaria, small jars for oils and perfumes, and a strigil, a tool used in Roman bathing rituals. With these findings, researchers decided to open the coffin lid to conduct more detailed studies of the body and the accompanying artifacts. Their main goal now is to uncover the identity of the tomb's occupant and understand any possible connection to Cerberus. Is this the tomb of someone involved in Greek myth-inspired rituals? Or is it merely an intriguing coincidence that the deceased was buried in a tomb adorned with such mystical symbols? This tomb promises to reveal valuable insights into the daily life, beliefs, and rituals of ancient Romans. The combination of the grave goods and the Cerberus mural is not only a cultural artifact, but also a mystery about the relationship between humans and mythology during this period. Who was the person buried here? And did mythological rituals truly influence the lives of ancient Romans? These are questions that researchers will continue to explore in the coming months, so stay tuned for what may be uncovered next. Stone Age skeletons in a mass grave reveal horrific human violence 6,000 years ago. 7 human skeletons, including 2 male skeletons, 1 female skeleton, 3 children's skeletons, 1 infant skull, along with fragments of hand bones and several disarticulated arm bones, were recently discovered by archaeologists in Bergheim, France, in an ancient mass grave. This grisly, almost horror movie-like discovery sheds light on the extreme violence that existed 6,000 years ago. The discovery was reported in the December issue of the journal Antiquity, which stated that the individuals in the pit had been killed during an attack or conflict and then placed in the mass grave, where previously some left arms had been buried, severed with axes or sharp weapons. It is still unclear whose arms were cut. All skeletons were found with their arms intact, except for 1 male skeleton whose skull shows signs of a severe blow. This skeleton is missing its left arm, though researchers have not determined whether the missing arm was also placed in the pit. Archaeologist Fanny Chanal from the Antia Archaeological Institute in Habsheim and her research team are unsure whether the perpetrators specifically targeted left arms for any particular reason, but they suggest the left arms may have been taken as trophies of war. The scattered hand bone fragments at the bottom of the pit indicate that the hands of the severed arms were deliberately smashed. Carbon dating of the bones shows that these individuals lived 6,000 years ago during the Neolithic period. At that time, deceased members of farming communities were usually buried in round-mouthed pits. However, the Bergheim discovery provides the first evidence that victims of violent conflicts from this era were also buried in such round-mouthed pits. This is a highly significant finding, but it raises more questions than answers. Prior to this discovery, the nature of Neolithic mass graves was still largely mysterious. Some scientists believe the pits were originally silos, later repurposed for burials. Others suggested the pits were intended for high-status individuals, with servants or family members killed to accompany them. Another hypothesis is that slaves may have been killed and buried as sacrificial offerings to deities, as several artifacts were found alongside the skeletons, including a piece of jewelry made from seashell, a stone spearhead, a pig jaw fragment, and 2 wild rabbit skeletons, all consistent with ritual offerings. It remains difficult to determine which of these hypotheses best explains the Bergheim mass grave. 12 terrifying archaeological discoveries you won't believe are real. 2 mummies buried beneath the permafrost of the Arctic. In a land where winter seems endless, where just hearing the average year-round temperature is enough to send a chill down your spine, archaeologists have uncovered a discovery that has shaken history itself. It is the remains of 2 mummies, 1 adult and 1 child, lying undisturbed for centuries in the eternal ice of Siberia, deep within the Arctic region of northern Russia. This is not science fiction, nor is it a folk legend. It is vivid physical evidence of an ancient civilization that once existed, one sophisticated enough to challenge time itself. The 2 mummies were discovered in Salikard, a city known as the Arctic capital of Russia. This remarkable city lies entirely above the Arctic Circle, overlooking the icy Kara Sea. Here, the average temperature hovers around 21 degrees Fahrenheit, and during extreme cold spells, well, you can imagine just how brutal it gets. Ironically, this harsh cold became a silent guardian, preserving the bodies in near-perfect condition for centuries. The adult mummy measures nearly 5.6 feet in length and has been identified as a fully grown individual. Beside it lies the much smaller mummy of an infant, estimated to be around 6 months old. What astonished experts was not only their ages, but the way they were buried. Both bodies were carefully wrapped in multiple layers of thick fabric, animal fur, and tree bark. The adult mummy, however, had an additional layer, a tightly sealed casing made of copper. Just hearing that already hints at an extraordinary level of craftsmanship. This copper covering was not merely decorative, it reveals something crucial. This civilization knew how to produce and use copper. Copper also has antibacterial properties, limiting the growth of microbes and helping preserve the body more effectively. In a way, these ancient people were using a highly advanced preservation technology, long before freezers or modern laboratories even existed. According to anthropologist Yevgenia Sviatova, when experts discovered that the wrappings were still intact, they did not dare unwrap them on the spot. The reason was simple but practical. They feared damaging both the fabric and the remains inside. Instead of opening them immediately, the team excavated the entire frozen block and transported it to a laboratory for further study. That level of caution alone speaks volumes about the importance of this discovery. Next, scientists plan to conduct detailed laboratory analyses, including DNA testing, forensic examinations, and historical context studies. Their goal is to answer a series of lingering questions. Who were these individuals? When did they live? Which community did they belong to? And why were they buried in such an unusual manner? Although the exact age of the mummies has not yet been determined, the excavation site, known as Zilini Yar, is believed to date back to around the 13th century during the Middle Ages. Interestingly, this is not the first time Zilini Yar has spoken. In fact, nearly 100 mummies have been discovered at this site over the past 20 years. The area resembles a massive history book, containing a copper smelting workshop from the 16th to 17th centuries, burial grounds from the 18th to 19th centuries, and even an ancient cemetery dating back to the 13th century. And that's not all. Archaeologists also uncovered a copper bowl of Persian origin, dated to the 10th century, found more than 3,700 miles from Persia, deep in Siberia. This raises a compelling question. How did a Persian artifact travel to this frozen land? Was there a vast ancient trade network far more extensive than we once believed? Or is this merely the first piece of a much larger story still waiting to be told? For now, it remains an unsolved mystery, locked within the silence of an ancient tomb, silence of an 1,000-ton stone obelisk that has remained unerected for 3,500 years. Lying silent within a quarry for more than 3 millennia, this structure carries not only the marks of time, but also unanswered questions about the extraordinary engineering capabilities of ancient Egyptian civilization. It is the unfinished obelisk, a forgotten marvel resting in the heart of the city of Aswan, once the largest granite quarrying center of ancient Egypt. Amid the sun-scorched, wind-swept landscape, the monument lies tilted within the earth like a sleeping giant, and most remarkably, it has never been erected. This obelisk is believed to have been commissioned by Queen Pharaoh Hatshepsut, one of the most powerful female rulers in history, sometime between 1473 and 1458 BCE. She intended it to serve as a secondary obelisk, standing beside the Lateran obelisk, which still holds the record today as the tallest standing obelisk in the world, measuring approximately 150 feet tall including its base. What is truly astonishing, however, is that if the unfinished obelisk in Aswan had been completed, it would have surpassed every obelisk ever erected. Its shaft alone would have been about 1/3 taller than that of the Lateran obelisk. So why was such an ambitious project abandoned? The answer lies in the visible cracks, clear evidence of a serious accident during construction. While still in the carving phase, the massive granite block unexpectedly split, rendering it structurally unfit to be raised as a monument. No matter how skilled they were, ancient craftsmen had no choice but to leave the project unfinished. Yet it is precisely this abandonment that gives the obelisk its unique value. Because it was never removed from the quarry, it has become a perfect window through time, allowing archaeologists to gain rare insight into how ancient Egyptians extracted and shaped stone. Chisel marks remain clearly visible, and red guideline markings are still intact, as if the stoneworkers had only just stepped away yesterday. Through these details, researchers can reconstruct how ancient builders cut, shaped, and planned to transport enormous stone blocks, a feat of engineering that continues to astonish the modern world. Still, the question that fascinates many the most remains unanswered. How did ancient Egyptians plan to move a stone weighing more than 1,000 metric tons, about 1,100 US short tons? The most widely accepted theory suggests they used wooden sledges to drag the obelisk out of the quarry, then transferred it onto large boats to be transported along the Nile River. Upon reaching its destination, they likely took advantage of natural slopes, along with pulley systems and ropes, to haul the obelisk upward before gradually lowering it into a vertical position. To modern ears, this may sound straightforward, but accomplishing such a task more than 3,000 years ago without any modern machinery borders on the unimaginable. That is why, even today, it would not be an exaggeration to say that the unfinished obelisk is more than just an archaeological relic. It stands as a testament to the ancient human spirit of conquest, people who looked at a massive block of stone and envisioned a monument rising proudly into the sky. The 4,600-year-old ship of Pharaoh Khufu, a mystery buried beside the Great Pyramid of Giza. Inside a museum in Egypt, there is an artifact that makes almost everyone stop and stare for a few silent seconds. An ancient ship nearly 144 feet long, bearing the marks of time for more than 4,600 years. This is no ordinary vessel. It is believed to have belonged to Pharaoh Khufu, the ruler who ordered the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its sheer size and immense age alone raise a fascinating question. Why would the ancient Egyptians build such a massive ship, only to bury it deep beneath the ground? The story began in 1954, when an Egyptian archaeologist discovered a hidden burial pit located right next to Khufu's Great Pyramid. Inside were not gold, jewels, or stone statues, but carefully arranged wooden pieces. After excavation, researchers counted a total of 1,224 separate wooden fragments. Just imagine standing before thousands of ancient wooden pieces with no blueprints and no instructions. Yet archaeologists spent 20 months painstakingly assembling them, eventually reconstructing the complete ship as we see it today. That achievement alone is truly remarkable. What astonished researchers even more, however, was the material itself. About 95% of the ship's wood was identified as cedar, most likely Lebanese cedar, originating from a region hundreds of miles away from Egypt. This clearly shows that the ancient Egyptians not only mastered shipbuilding techniques, but also maintained highly developed trade networks for acquiring materials. The raw logs were cut, shaped, and polished using relatively simple tools made of copper and flint. And yet, when examining the deck, the joints, and the graceful curves of the hull, one can only marvel at the extraordinary craftsmanship of the builders. The most important question, however, remains unanswered. What was this ship actually used for? More than half a century after its discovery, scholars still cannot agree on a definitive explanation. One theory suggests that this was a solar boat, a vessel meant to carry Pharaoh Khufu after death as he transformed into the sun god Ra, traveling across the sky each day for eternity. While this may sound mystical, it fits perfectly within ancient Egyptian religious beliefs. Another, more practical theory proposes that the ship was used to transport Khufu's body along the Nile River, carrying him from the place of his death to the royal burial grounds at Giza. There is also speculation that it served as a ceremonial vessel for the pharaoh's final pilgrimage to sacred sites before his eternal rest. However, these remain only theories. Like so many mysteries surrounding the Great Pyramid and ancient Egyptian civilization, the true purpose of this ship has yet to be definitively answered. What do you think? Was it a vessel for a sacred cosmic ritual, or simply the ship that carried Egypt's most powerful pharaoh to his final resting place? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below the video. An ancient woman's mummy, resting for over 100 years in the frozen ice of Siberia. In the frigid expanse of Siberia, where the cold is so intense that even breathing deeply feels enough to make someone else shiver, there is a story that sends chills through archaeologists and keeps listeners completely captivated. It is the story of a woman who slept peacefully for more than a century, yet when she was discovered, she remained almost perfectly preserved, as if she had left this world only yesterday. Hearing this, you might be wondering, what exactly happened beneath that layer of eternal ice? The answer lies in Yakutia, one of the coldest places on Earth. There, scientists discovered the mummy of a woman believed to have lived in the late 19th or early 20th century. Surprisingly, what left everyone wide-eyed was not her age, but the near-perfect state of preservation of her body. This was not a dried-out corpse, nor merely a skeleton. Her soft tissues, clothing, and even her leather stockings were still intact. Just thinking about it sends a chill down your spine, doesn't it? According to Dr. Elena Solovyova, who was directly involved in the research, the woman's soft tissues were extraordinarily well preserved. And the reason had nothing to do with modern technology. It was entirely the work of nature. She was likely buried during winter, when the ground was frozen as hard as stone. Once her body was covered by soil and then locked into permafrost, the process of decomposition was almost completely halted. Put simply, Siberia unintentionally turned into a massive natural freezer, running continuously for more than 100 years without ever losing power. The closer archaeologists examined the remains, the more fascinating details they uncovered. First, the woman was wearing leather stockings, over which she had torbasa, traditional Yakut boots lined with animal fur, designed to withstand the biting cold. The lower part of her clothing was also made from fur, consistent with traditional attire worn by the region's indigenous people. This suggests that she was not a stranger to the land, but very likely a member of an ancient Yakutian community. And here is the detail that made many hold their breath. A cross was still resting on her chest. It was a small symbol, but one that opened up a much larger story about faith, cultural exchange, and the layered history of this frozen land. Just imagine, in such brutal cold, people still carried their beliefs with them into the grave. And more than a century later, that belief remains there, silent yet perfectly intact. Isn't that remarkable? So who was she? What was her life like while she was alive? Why was she buried with such care? And how many other frozen secrets are still resting beneath the Siberian ice, waiting for the day they are finally told? Unfortunately, for now, all of these questions remain unanswered. Rare mummy with artifacts and mysterious tattoos. In June 2008, a remarkable archaeological discovery sent ripples through the scientific community when researchers uncovered the mummy of a man buried deep underground in the town of Rontoy, Peru. What made this discovery extraordinary was that the mummy was not merely an ancient human remain, but a vivid testament to social stratification within the ancient Chankay society. What immediately drew archaeologists' attention were the metal plates placed over the man's eyes, a rare and highly symbolic detail indicating that he once belonged to the elite class and held an important social position within his community. The mummy was preserved with exceptional care, wrapped in layers of finely woven textiles and accompanied by grave goods such as silver bead necklaces, wooden figurines, and most notably, corn, the staple food of the local population. The metal pieces, made of copper and silver, were placed over the eyes and mouth of the mummy, serving as clear indicators of the wealth and power this individual once possessed. The face of the mummy was also coated with a red pigment made from mercury sulfide, a material commonly used in burial rituals for members of the nobility. This further confirms the deceased's elevated status compared to other social classes. Another fascinating detail is a tattoo found on the mummy's knee. Archaeologists believe this form of body decoration was exclusive to individuals of the upper class. Kit Nelson, an anthropologist from Tulane University who directly participated in uncovering and unwrapping the mummy, stated that the tattoo held special significance for the Chankay people and functioned as an identifying mark of those at the top of society. However, using modern research methods such as X-ray imaging, scientists found no evidence of serious trauma to the man's bones. This has raised the possibility that he may have died from an illness, although the exact cause of death has yet to be officially determined. The presence of unusual objects, such as 2 cotton balls, one white and one brown, along with items like thread bracelets and an empty wool pouch, suggest that this man was not only a spiritual leader, but also closely connected to religious rituals and communal traditions. This interpretation is further supported by the historical context of the Rontoy region. During the golden age of the Chankay civilization, Rontoy was a central city within a thriving agricultural community, surrounded by vast cornfields and notable architectural structures. Although researchers have not yet been able to determine the city's exact size in the past, the discoveries made here clearly indicate that Rontoy once played a crucial role in Chankay society. It was also closely connected to the Huaura River Valley, an important region within Andean civilization. Despite the rapid development of modern railway infrastructure, which has led to the destruction of many ancient structures, discoveries such as the Kiko Rontoy mummy continue to provide fresh perspectives on the history of ancient Andean peoples. From the finely woven textiles and precious metal pieces to the ceremonial offerings and religious artifacts, everything points to this man being a figure of great influence. possibly a religious leader or a powerful official during the height of the Chankay civilization. And as you can see, each discovery like this not only sheds light on the secrets of the past, but also brings us one step closer to understanding this mysterious and richly textured civilization. People who lived centuries ago, yet left behind traces that remain deeply embedded in the soil of Peru to this very day. Ancient Eskimo village, emerging from melting Arctic ice. There's a rather bitter, yet fascinating paradox at play. The ice melting due to climate change is now revealing things that no one could have imagined centuries ago. And this time, what emerged from the Arctic ice wasn't a mummy or fossilized bones. It was an entire ancient Eskimo village, asleep for roughly 500 years. Imagine this, a place that was once just endless white ice, suddenly revealing traces of a community that once lived, ate, laughed, and braved the cold in their own unique way. This village is called Nunalak, home to the Yupik Eskimos, one of the last Eskimo groups still living in Alaska today. Interestingly, during its peak, Yupik society was considered one of the most developed and prosperous civilizations in the Arctic region. Now you might be wondering, prosperous in a land that's frozen year-round, where barely any trees grow? Well, the discoveries at Nunalak are slowly answering that question. When a massive block of ice melted, researchers from the University of Aberdeen were nearly overwhelmed by what they uncovered beneath. Thousands of artifacts were found, and remarkably, they were preserved in extremely good condition, as if they had been forgotten just yesterday. From animal furs and woven grass textiles to finely carved figurines and even human hair. Yes, human hair, which might give you goosebumps, but for science, it's a treasure trove. Nunalak is believed to have been inhabited between roughly 1350 and 1650, during what is known as the Little Ice Age. While we today worry about the Earth heating up, the Yupik back then faced the opposite challenge. Plummeting temperatures, expanding ice and snow, and rapidly changing living conditions. And yet, under these harsh circumstances, they survived, adapted, and even thrived. What particularly fascinates researchers is not just the artifacts themselves, but the stories they tell. Everyday items reveal how the Yupik maximized the resources nature provided: fur for warmth, grass for weaving, driftwood, and bones for tools. Each artifact is like a small puzzle piece, contributing to a larger picture of life in the ancient Arctic. Especially remarkable are the strands of human hair, which provide a rare opportunity to analyze the diets of the ancient Yupik. Scientists hope to understand how they adjusted their food intake in response to climate changes. Did they eat more fish, hunt more animals, or find new food sources to survive? In other words, hair was not only for appearance, it was a biological record of an entire community. Dr. Rick Knecht points out that this discovery is not only archaeologically and culturally significant, but also offers modern humans a mirror to reflect on ourselves. The way the Yupik adapted to colder climates could offer clues about how today's societies might cope with environmental changes in the future. The village of Nunalak, emerging from melting ice, serves as a reminder. Nature can bury the past, but nature can also tell its story. And every time ice melts, it's not only a cause for concern, it's also an opportunity to uncover precious lessons hidden for centuries. So, what do you think, given today's warming Earth and the melting ice around the globe? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 2,000-year-old horse-drawn chariot, burned in an ancient fortress, traces of a mysterious Iron Age ritual. Hidden beneath layers of soil and rock on Burrow Hill, near the town of Melton Mowbray in Leicestershire, England, a rare archaeological discovery has astonished researchers. The remains of a bronze horse-drawn chariot, over 2,000 years old, found within an Iron Age hill fort. At first glance, one might wonder, in such a seemingly peaceful hill, why would traces of a chariot associated with power and ritual even exist? The answer emerged during the excavation, when archaeologists uncovered a series of chariot-related artifacts, including wheel axle pins, decorative bronze rings, harness straps, and notably, a saddle with an unusual shape resembling a small barrel. Based on the craftsmanship and materials, experts estimate these artifacts were made around the 2nd or 3rd century BCE. This means the chariot dates back to a time when ancient societies in the British Isles were still heavily influenced by Iron Age culture. What makes this discovery even more remarkable isn't just its age, but the way the chariot was buried. The remains were found atop a layer of chaff and straw, which archaeologists interpret as fuel for a ritualistic cremation. In other words, the chariot was deliberately burned before being buried. This was not ordinary destruction. It was likely part of a religious ceremony with profound significance. From these clues, archaeologists infer that the chariot may have been sacrificed in a special ritual, perhaps before dismantling or destroying a building within the hill fort, or to mark an important seasonal event. For the Iron Age people, such moments were not just about changes in weather or living conditions. They were deeply intertwined with spiritual beliefs and connections to supernatural forces. Experts also note that the chariot almost certainly did not belong to an ordinary person. In Iron Age society, horse-drawn vehicles symbolized power, status, and prestige. Its owner may have been a noble or a high-ranking warrior. Jeremy Taylor, an archaeologist from Leicestershire University, expressed his excitement, calling it the most significant find at Burrow Hill in 5 years of research. Discoveries like this are extremely rare. After carefully cleaning the artifact, the team uncovered intricate decorative patterns, 3 curved branches radiating from a central point. Many have noted a resemblance to the symbol on the modern flag of the Isle of Man, suggesting the possibility that the ancient inhabitants of this region may have had cultural or trade connections farther afield than previously thought. The excavation also revealed a set of iron horse care tools. Among them were an object resembling a modern horse brush and 2 curved blades, possibly used for trimming hooves or maintaining saddles. These small details show that ancient people not only used horses as transportation, but cared for them meticulously, treating them as highly valuable assets. Today, all artifacts have been transported to Lancashire University for further study. Archaeologists hope that in the near future, the 2,000-year-old horse-drawn chariot and related items will be displayed to the public, allowing everyone to witness a vivid piece of the past, where an ancient ritual once took place, leaving its mark even to this day. 9-million-year-old ancestor of the great white shark. Fossil shocks the South Pacific. Around 9 million years ago, long before humans appeared, the southern Pacific Ocean was ruled by a giant ocean predator, closely related to today's great white shark. On January 20, 2025, paleontologists in Peru officially announced the discovery of an almost complete fossil of this ancient shark, sending waves of excitement through the scientific community. At this point, you're probably wondering, what did this creature look like, and why is this discovery so important? The shark in question is called Cosmopolitodus hastalis, which once dominated the ancient southern Pacific waters. Its favorite prey was not small fish, but dense schools of sardines swimming offshore. The fossil was found in the Pisco Basin, about 146 miles south of Lima. Today, the area is an arid desert with harsh sun and wind, but millions of years ago, it was a vibrant seabed, preserving countless traces of ancient marine life. What makes this discovery particularly remarkable is the fossil's level of preservation. Unlike many previous finds that consisted only of isolated teeth, this specimen includes a relatively complete skeleton of a giant shark. According to scientists, Cosmopolitodus hastalis is considered a direct ancestor of the great white shark, one of the ocean's most fearsome predators today. Though this ancient species is extinct, the remains reveal a creature whose power rivaled that of its modern descendants. Consider the size. Its teeth could reach up to 3.5 inches long, razor-sharp like blades. A fully grown individual could reach nearly 23 feet in length, roughly the size of a small boat. With dimensions like that, it's easy to imagine it as the apex predator of its time, with almost no rivals in its environment. Cesar Augusto Chacaltana, an engineer from the Peruvian Geological and Mining Institute, stated during the unveiling that the fossil is exceptionally rare. The skeletal and dental structures are well preserved, allowing researchers to accurately reconstruct the shark's shape, size, and lifestyle. At the press event, the fossil was carefully displayed in glass cases, with the massive jaw and rows of sharp teeth taking center stage. Just seeing it sends chills down your spine. This discovery not only helps us better understand the origins and evolution of the great white shark, but also opens a window into the ancient marine ecosystem of the South Pacific. 2,000-year-old block of butter still edible after being buried in an Irish bog. You probably never imagined that a block of butter could survive for 2,000 years, right? But in this mysterious world, anything is possible. Imagine standing in a wet bog in Ireland where lush green grass grows and the air carries the weight of history. Suddenly, you stumble upon an unusual object, which at first glance looks like a giant potato, but in reality, it's a sphere of butter. This butterball weighed nearly 22 pounds, enough to make anyone marvel at how it could have survived for thousands of years. The story begins with a mower named Jack Conaway, who discovered the butter while working in the Emlag bog. At first, he probably thought he had found an unusual clump of soil or rock, but on closer inspection, he realized it was a strangely preserved piece of butter. So, how could a block of butter survive for so long, and what exactly was it? This was no ordinary food item. It was made from cow's milk, and even more striking, it had a strong odor stronger than cheese, which might make many people recoil. Estimated to be 2,000 years old, this butter has endured a long journey, much of which remains a mystery. But one thing is certain, few people ever get the chance to witness such a rare artifact. The secret to its survival lies in ancient preservation methods. In times before refrigeration or modern storage, people developed a clever technique, burying butter underground. But they didn't just bury it anywhere. They chose bogs, which offered cool, oxygen-poor conditions. This was crucial in preventing spoilage. With no salt, no fridge, the butter could remain surprisingly fresh under layers of peat and in low-oxygen soil. Even more fascinating, archaeologists discovered that these butter blocks were not buried randomly. Many were placed in special locations, such as crossroads between ancient kingdoms. These areas were considered sacred land, where ordinary people were forbidden to disturb. This suggests that the butter may have been offered as a ritual sacrifice to deities, rather than simply stored as food. Alongside the butter, archaeologists also uncovered cheese jars dating from 400 to 350 BCE. Remarkably, these cheeses were also well preserved, retaining their original shape, though their taste would certainly have changed over the millennia. Even after 2,000 years, this butter remains an extremely rare and mysterious artifact, sparking curiosity and imagination about the past. So, what do you think about this 2,000-year-old butterball? Could it be a gift from time, or simply a testament to the creativity and skill of ancient people in food preservation? Whatever the answer, it remains a mystery not fully solved, and stories like this will continue to draw us into the strange and fascinating history of the world. 4,000-year-old 3D mural shocks Peru. Some archaeological discoveries don't need gold, silver, or massive stone statues to leave us in awe. Sometimes, just a few carefully removed layers of earth are enough to reveal the spiritual world of prehistoric people with astonishing clarity. At the Huaca Yolanda site in Peru, archaeologists have done just that by uncovering a rare ancient 3D mural, believed to have existed for around 4,000 years, almost untouched by the modern world. Huaca Yolanda is not an ordinary site. It's a ritual complex covering about 50 acres, featuring large plazas and massive architectural structures, reminiscent of the sacred city Caral Supe, the cradle of one of the oldest civilizations in the Americas. This suggests that Huaca Yolanda was once a major center for spiritual activity, where ancient people gathered to perform rituals closely tied to nature and the cosmos. During a recent excavation, a team from Trujillo National University accessed a U-shaped subterranean structure buried beneath the soil for millennia. And there, in a skylight within the structure, they encountered an incredible sight, an ancient mural, still maintaining a clear layout and striking three-dimensional detail. The mural measures roughly 13 feet long by 5 feet wide. What makes it especially remarkable is its 3D style, unlike typical flat murals, giving a real sense of depth. At the center is the image of a fish, but its body is shaped like a raised fishing net, giving viewers the impression that the fish is moving through space. Surrounding it are trees and stars, creating a scene both familiar to daily life and imbued with mystical symbolism. Researchers date the mural to around 4,000 years ago, which means that at a time when humans had no metal tools or modern equipment, they were already capable of producing complex artworks, combining sculptural techniques with symbolic thinking. This is not just decorative art. It is evidence of highly developed cognition and social organization. Archaeologist Ana Cecilia Mauricio from Trujillo National University explains that the mural does not simply depict marine life. The images were deliberately arranged to reflect a deep spiritual connection between humans and their environment. The fish represents the sea, the trees symbolize the land, and the stars stand for the sky, three elements forming the worldview of the prehistoric inhabitants. Mauricio further suggests that the mural may have been part of a sacred space where rituals related to water and the fertility of local resources were performed. For ancient people who relied on the sea and agriculture, water was not just a source of life, it determined the prosperity or decline of the community. Placing these symbols in an underground temple made perfect sense. The more archaeologists study the site, the more they believe the mural was not merely decorative. It is like a message carved in art, designed to connect humans with the natural forces they revered. In the U-shaped temple, where light enters only through the skylight, this 3D mural likely created a powerful spiritual experience for participants in the rituals. The discovery at Huaca Yolanda reminds us that prehistoric people were far from primitive. They had art, faith, and sophisticated symbolic thinking. And beneath layers of seemingly silent earth, there may still be countless untold stories waiting for modern humans patient enough to listen. The immortal airplane in the jungles of New Guinea. In 1985, deep in the remote swamplands of the New Guinea jungle, an astonishing discovery sent shivers down the spines of officials and scientists alike. A twin-engine passenger plane, missing for nearly half a century, had suddenly reappeared. What made it unbelievable was not just that the plane had been lost for decades, it was the fact that it looked almost brand new. Its gleaming silver fuselage sparkled under the sunlight, with virtually no scratches or signs of wear. The tail number was still perfectly legible, as if the aircraft had just rolled out of a maintenance hangar yesterday. According to records, the plane had disappeared 45 years earlier during a flight from Manila, Philippines to Mindanao. For all that time, no one knew where it had gone, where it had landed, or whether it had experienced any mechanical failure mid-flight. As soon as the information was confirmed, a team of Indonesian military aviation experts was dispatched to the site, but after their initial inspection, their faces turned pale. Astonishment quickly gave way to concern, and the area was immediately cordoned off. Whatever they had witnessed was clearly far from ordinary. Investigators recounted that at first glance, they could hardly believe their eyes. The aircraft's exterior remained perfectly smooth, showing no signs of corrosion from the swamp's humidity or mud. In the sunlight, the fuselage reflected like a mirror. They expected the metal doors to be rusted after so many years, but the opposite was true. With gentle force, the doors opened smoothly, without a creak or any of the usual noises of aged metal. Inside the cabin, the scene was even stranger. There were no passengers or crew, alive or dead. Yet everything else appeared frozen in time. Paper cups still sat on the tables, half-smoked cigarettes remained in ashtrays, and newspapers dated Sunday, January 17, 1937, were pristine, showing no yellowing from age. Looking around, it was as if the passengers had just left a few minutes ago. In one ashtray, investigators found cigarette packs from the 1930s, brands that had disappeared after World War II. Hairstyles and clothing depicted in the newspapers reflected the era of the Great Depression in the United States. Even more astonishing, a thermos still contained coffee, and its aroma was perfectly preserved, as if freshly brewed. The most hair-raising detail was the technical condition of the plane. The batteries were still fully charged. Flipping a switch immediately lit up the cabin lights. The fuel tank was nearly full, enough for the aircraft to take off again. All of this defied every known law of physics and the usual effects of aging. Based on the impressions left under the landing gear, experts believe the plane made an emergency landing on the soft swamp terrain, which may explain why it suffered no visible damage. But the biggest question remains: where had the plane been for 45 years? How could there be no trace of time left on it? To this day, scientists continue to examine and analyze every minute detail, hoping to solve the mystery of this immortal airplane hidden in the jungle. What about you? Do you think this is just a rare natural phenomenon, or could there be something far deeper behind the story of this seemingly eternal aircraft? The demon-faced monster fossil emerges from the riverbed. What if a time portal suddenly opened beneath your feet? Would you dare to step through? Imagine standing in the wild lands of northern Florida, a region that was the stage for brutal survival battles millions of years ago. There, a buried world of giant beasts is slowly being awakened. What would you do? During what seemed like a routine excavation along the bed of a dried-up river, a research team from the Florida Museum of Natural History unexpectedly uncovered the fossilized bones of a massive, grotesque, almost surreal creature. This creature was a gomphothere, an elephant-like animal with the appearance of a nightmare. Gomphotheres were not just distant relatives of modern elephants. They were demon-faced monsters that roamed across North America roughly 6 million years ago. Weighing up to 11,000 pounds and standing as tall as a modern African elephant, this species sported 4 tusks, 2 long pointed ones on the upper jaw and 2 shorter upward curving tusks from the lower jaw, forming a face both bizarre and terrifying. If you've ever imagined monsters from the movies, congratulations, filmmakers may have inadvertently recreated a creature that truly existed. The excavation site, named Montbrook, is a natural fossil graveyard where past and present meet in layers of ancient soil. Among dozens of elephant-like bones, Dean Warner, a retired chemistry teacher, stumbled upon the complete skeleton of what scientists now call the King Gomphothere. Remarkably, the giant creature's skeleton was preserved in a lifelike pose, as if it had just lain down and never awoken. A peaceful death frozen in the earth for millions of years. This isn't just the largest Gomphothere skeleton ever discovered. It is also one of the most complete fossils in the world. Its skull measures 9 feet long, with a height of nearly 8 feet, resembling a living tower that once dominated this wild landscape. Why were so many Gomphotheres, along with other animals, concentrated in this very area? Scientists hypothesize that, like modern elephants, older or weaker individuals may have gathered near familiar water sources to spend their final moments. Over thousands of years, successive floods layered the remains of multiple generations, creating a stratified graveyard, essentially a petrified chronicle of Earth's ancient life. And the King Gomphothere is more than just a fossil. It is a witness rising from the earth, telling the story of an era long before humans existed, when life was staggeringly complex and fierce, and saying that is by no means an exaggeration. A lost tomb of a mysterious Egyptian king was just opened. The mummy of a mysterious woman inside an Egyptian pyramid was mistaken for a pharaoh for centuries. When people think of the Egyptian pyramids, images of powerful pharaohs, kings believed to be divine incarnations on earth, immediately come to mind. For thousands of years, pyramids have been regarded as the final resting places reserved exclusively for pharaohs. However, one discovery has shaken that long-held belief. A mummy found inside a pyramid turned out not to be a king, but a woman. As you may know, ancient Egypt was one of the most brilliant civilizations in human history, formed and developed along the fertile lower reaches of the Nile River. This civilization lasted for thousands of years and went through many periods of rise and decline, but its most prominent era was marked by great pharaohs such as Djoser, Kufu, Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, and Ramses II. By the late 19th century, numerous royal tombs had been discovered and excavated, even though many of them had previously been looted by grave robbers. Still, history has never stopped delivering new surprises. One of the clearest examples is a discovery made in 2020 at Dahshur, a royal necropolis located in the desert on the west bank of the Nile, about 25 miles south of Cairo. There, archaeologists uncovered numerous cultural artifacts inside a coffin placed within a pyramid. This detail alone was enough to convince the academic community that the tomb's owner must have been a pharaoh, because according to ancient Egyptian customs, only kings were buried in pyramids. Dr. Yasmin El-Shazli, an Egyptologist and the leader of the excavation team, along with her colleagues, carefully reassembled fragments of broken wood found in the burial chamber. After many meticulous steps, they managed to reconstruct the coffin lid, which featured an exquisitely carved face. At first, everyone worked under the assumption that they were facing a previously unknown pharaoh. But the more they studied it, the more that theory began to reveal inconsistencies. The most striking detail was found on the head of the figure carved on the coffin lid. The figure was wearing a Hathor wig, an accessory commonly associated with women during the Middle Kingdom period. Hathor was not an ordinary figure, but one of the most important goddesses in ancient Egyptian religion. She was the goddess of love, beauty, women, the sky, joy, art, miners, and both life and death. Hathor was often depicted with a solar disk and cow horns on her head. Such a distinctly feminine symbol clearly could not belong to a male pharaoh. Moreover, the mummy of this mysterious woman was found alongside a chest covered in hieroglyphic inscriptions. This discovery gave researchers hope that they might uncover the true identity of the tomb's owner. Unfortunately, the section containing the name had been severely damaged over time. Even so, the remaining text provided a crucial clue. Egyptologists were able to decipher a phrase that read, "Daughter of the King." This confirmed that the person buried there was an ancient Egyptian princess. The greatest paradox, however, lies in this question. Why would a princess be buried inside a pyramid? Professor Aidan Dodson of the University of Bristol explains that this type of pyramid architecture was designed exclusively for kings, not for lower-ranking members of the royal family. Typically, a princess would be buried in a much smaller and more modest tomb. This unusual circumstance has turned the tomb at Dashur into a true mystery. The research team continued their investigation, focusing on the Middle Kingdom period, roughly from 2030 to 1650 BCE, the era during which this woman likely lived. Yet to this day, the identity of the exceptional princess who was specially granted burial in a pyramid remains unknown. So who was she really? A princess more powerful than usual, or someone with a special religious role that history failed to record? The answer still lies somewhere beneath the desert sands, waiting to be revealed. And it is mysteries like this that give ancient Egypt its enduring and almost magnetic appeal. The more we explore, the more we realize how much history still refuses to tell us. Mysterious Tomb reveals the lonely death of a powerful pharaoh in Egypt. Amid the barren deserts of Egypt lies a place where every stone and every tunnel is intertwined with power and eternity, the Valley of the Kings. Yet, believe it or not, it was precisely in this place, long thought to be reserved only for magnificent royal tombs, that a discovery in 1907 left archaeologists deeply perplexed. There, archaeologists uncovered a small tomb, shockingly simple, hidden among the monumental structures of pharaohs from Egypt's Golden Age. This tomb was designated K555, and from the moment it was discovered, it raised a series of unanswered questions. Initial observations showed that KV55 did not resemble any other royal tomb. Archaeologists realized that the structure appeared to have been built hastily, lacking careful planning. There were even signs suggesting that the mummy inside may have originally been buried elsewhere and later transferred here as a temporary solution. This only deepened the mystery. Who could have been treated this way even after death? The tomb's architecture itself was extremely modest. The entrance consisted of 20 steps, but by the time of its discovery, the entire area had severely deteriorated, forcing archaeologists to dismantle it completely. From there, a sloping corridor led deep underground, ending at the main burial chamber. This space contained only a single chamber and a small side niche, completely at odds with the grandeur typically seen in other pharaonic tombs. The artifacts found inside only added to the confusion. The tomb contained just 4 wooden jars, a gilded wooden shrine, several seals, a ceramic vessel, a silver goose head, 2 clay bricks, and a single coffin holding 1 mummy. Ironically, the coffin was badly decayed, causing severe damage to the mummy's face, rendering it nearly unrecognizable. From this point on, the identity of the individual buried in KV55 became a subject of debate that has lasted for more than a century. As investigations continued, researchers discovered that many of the objects in the tomb were linked to Pharaoh Akhenaten, one of the most controversial figures in ancient Egyptian history. The 4 wooden jars contained figurines of 4 women, believed to represent Akhenaten's 4 daughters. This led many to associate the burial with Kia, one of Akhenaten's wives, who was thought to have borne him 4 daughters. However, the mystery did not end there. The gilded wooden shrine appeared to have been made for Queen Tia, Akhenaten's mother. Moreover, the name of Pharaoh Akhenaten himself was clearly inscribed on the 2 clay bricks. One tomb, yet traces connected to multiple individuals, leaving experts thoroughly confused, as if assembling a puzzle whose pieces belonged to entirely different pictures. At first, many researchers believed the mummy belonged to Kia, but after an initial examination of the remains, the theory shifted toward Queen Tia. These conclusions were based on observations such as the position of the arms, damage to the pelvis, a chest shape resembling that of a female, and the apparent absence of clearly identifiable male genitalia. However, as more in-depth studies were conducted, these conclusions were quickly overturned. Detailed analyses revealed that the individual buried in KV-55 was in fact male. This raised a new question. Who was this man and when did he die? One theory suggested that the remains belonged to Smenkhkare, the son of Pharaoh Akhenaten. The mummy's age at death was initially estimated at around 25 years, then later revised to nearly 20. Anatomist Grafton Elliott Smith even proposed that the individual suffered from Froelich syndrome accompanied by hydrocephalus, based on the unusually elongated shape of the skull. However, subsequent examinations completely rejected this theory as no abnormalities were found in the skull or skeletal structure. The mummy in the attic that was forgotten for more than half a century in Germany. Just imagine this. On an ordinary afternoon, while rummaging through dusty old items in your grandmother's attic, you suddenly come face to face with a stone coffin. Inside it lies a mummy, tightly wrapped in bandages. Not in a movie, not in a museum, but right inside your own home. How would you feel? Honestly, for me, just thinking about it sends chills down my spine. Yet as unbelievable as it sounds, this story actually happened in real life in 2013 in the town of Diepholz in northern Germany. The main character was a boy named Alexander Kettler, who was only 10 years old at the time. While curiously exploring his grandmother's attic, Alexander stumbled upon a finely carved stone coffin, covered in familiar hieroglyphic patterns from ancient Egypt. And inside it was a real mummy, carefully wrapped from head to toe. The mummy was not alone. Inside the coffin were also a mask and a small jar, the type of vessel ancient Egyptians used to store internal organs removed during the mummification process. Every detail seemed almost too perfect, too textbook, making it impossible not to shudder and wonder. How could an Egyptian mummy have remained quietly in the attic of a German family for so many years? At first, neither Alexander's family nor those around them knew the true origin of the mummy. Even experts who became involved had to ask the same question. Was this a genuine ancient Egyptian mummy, or merely a highly sophisticated replica made for display? After all, in the past, the creation of fake mummies was not uncommon. However, one theory gradually emerged, and it made the story even more intriguing. The family believed that the mummy might have been a rare souvenir, brought back by the late father of Lutz Wolfgang Kettler, Alexander's father, during a trip to North Africa in the 1950s. At that time, the trade of Egyptian artifacts, even real mummies, was not as strictly regulated as it is today. In other words, although hard to believe, it was not impossible for an ordinary person to bring an actual mummy back to Europe. What makes the story even more remarkable is that for decades, the mummy was almost completely forgotten. Mr. Kettler stated that it had remained untouched in the attic for at least 40 years. It produced no strange odor and caused no unusual signs of any kind, allowing it to exist quietly like a secret asleep within the house itself. Contrary to what many might assume, Mr. Kettler did not attempt to X-ray or examine the mummy on his own. As a dentist, he understood the limits of his expertise and planned instead to bring the mummy to Berlin, where professional archaeologists could study it properly and scientifically. This caution only adds to the credibility of the story. Now try putting yourself in Alexander's position at that moment. 10 years old, casually searching through old belongings, and suddenly coming face to face with a mummy that could be 2 or even 3,000 years old. How would you react? Freeze in shock? Scream for an adult? Or turn around and run as fast as you can? Personally, if I were in that situation, I'd probably get goosebumps from head to toe and run first, ask questions later. Sounds a bit cowardly, doesn't it? But really, that's a very human reaction, isn't it? And if you think you'd react the same way, don't be embarrassed. After all, it's not every day that someone discovers an ancient Egyptian mummy in their own attic. It is precisely this accidental, eerie, yet deeply mysterious discovery that turned young Alexander's find into one of the strangest stories in recent memory, leaving people around the world wondering just how many secrets from the past may still be quietly hiding inside the ordinary homes around us. 18 giant human skeletons in Wisconsin. More than a century ago, on May 4, 1912, archaeologists from Beloit College unexpectedly unearthed 18 giant skeletons near Lake Delavan, Wisconsin. The remains were buried beneath layers of charcoal and clay, Because of their enormous size compared to normal human skeletons, these discoveries quickly became a topic of public discussion and sparked intense controversy within the scientific community at the time. Many theories suggested that these skeletons were compelling evidence proving the real existence of giants. Others, however, claimed that they were the remains of extraterrestrial beings who had once visited Earth. According to descriptions, these skeletons measured approximately 8.2 to 10.8 feet tall. Their skulls were believed to be human, but significantly larger than those of any known human population living in the United States today. They reportedly had double rows of teeth, 6 fingers, and 6 toes, similar in structure to humans of various races. The teeth at the front of the mouth were evenly shaped molars. Their heads were often described as unusually elongated, and it was believed that this trait may have allowed them to live longer than ordinary humans. In fact, many ancient cultures around the world believed in the existence of giants. Even ancient texts such as the Bible suggest that these mythological beings were real. Notably, Genesis 6:4 states that there were giants on the earth in those days, and that the sons of God took the daughters of humans as wives and had children by them. These offspring were described as mighty men of renown in ancient times. Vine Deloria, a Native American author and law professor, once stated that modern archaeology and anthropology have almost completely shut down human imagination. According to him, these disciplines broadly claim that the past of North America has nothing to do with anomalies, even though such anomalies were passed down through the traditions of great giant cultures. In the 19th century, explorers of massive ancient burial mounds associated with the Smithsonian Institution opened passageways through the resting places of countless skeletons. These entrances and everything inside were reportedly sealed under strict security, with access restricted to government officials only. However, even those officials never sought answers buried among the bones. After the discovery of these skeletons, troubling questions began to arise. Where exactly did these beings die? Were they intentionally hidden to avoid public exposure? Interestingly, the locations where these giant skeletons were found were already known for unusually large skeletal remains, vastly different from those of ordinary humans or Native Americans. In 1891, scientists from the Smithsonian Institution reportedly discovered giant skeletons while excavating a pyramid-shaped burial mound near Madison, strangely enough, also in Wisconsin. Later, all of these skeletons disappeared. The Smithsonian has stated that it has no knowledge of these remains or of any other giant skeletons. However, evidence from related news reports suggests that giant skeletons were discovered throughout the American Midwest over a period of nearly 100 years. Documented findings were reported in Minnesota, Ohio, Iowa, Indiana, Kentucky, and Illinois. Conspiracy theorists believe that the government is hiding something and has little interest in discussing the possibility that a race of giants may have lived in America centuries ago. But the Americas are not the only continent where such discoveries have been reported. In other parts of the world, researchers have also found skeletal remains believed to belong to a giant race. Although some evidence appears convincing, many cases have turned out to be elaborate hoaxes, making genuine discoveries around the world increasingly difficult to verify. One particularly fascinating example is a finger measuring about 15 inches long that was reportedly discovered in ancient Egypt. The finger bone of this mummy left a strong impression, resembling that of a human finger but vastly oversized. Egyptian researchers believe that this bone fragment may have belonged to a being over 16.4 feet tall. However, only a small number of people were able to photograph this finger bone in 1988, and the images were published in the reputable European newspaper Bild. What about you? What do you think? Do you believe that giants truly existed or not? A 130,000-year-old natural mummy deep inside an Italian cave. Have you ever imagined that deep beneath the earth, where sunlight has never reached, there could exist a human being who has been lying there for more than 130,000 years, preserved almost intact by nature itself? This is not a legend, nor is it science fiction, but a real story that took scientists decades to finally confirm. The story began in 1993, during the exploration of a calcite mineral cave system near the town of Altamura in southern Italy. At that time, archaeologists encountered a site that left everyone breathless. Hidden deep inside the cave, after nearly 20 minutes of crawling through narrow rock crevices, they discovered a human skeleton trapped among stark white limestone formations. The body had not decomposed in the usual way. Instead, it was encased in a hard layer of calcite sediment, forming what appeared to be a natural coffin created by the environment itself. From that moment on, the name Altamura Man was born. From the very first glance, Altamura Man's appearance sent chills down people's spines. His body lay curled up, his face distorted, his teeth exposed as if frozen in a silent scream. However, because of the extremely dangerous location and the technical limitations at the time, scientists were unable to access the remains directly for detailed study. As a result, the identity of this man remained a major mystery for decades. It was not until 2023 that modern science finally solved this mystery. Through indirect DNA analysis, researchers determined that Altamura Man was a Neanderthal who lived approximately 130,000 to 172,000 years ago. Just thinking about that is enough to give you goosebumps, isn't it? Neanderthal remains are extremely rare in such a well-preserved skeletal condition, let alone a naturally mummified fossil like this. The discovery did not stop there. Photographs, video footage, and X-ray imaging revealed even more fascinating details about this ancient man's life. Professor Jacopo Mogicecchi of the University of Florence identified unusual marks on Altamura Man's teeth, suggesting the involvement of a third hand. Sounds strange, right? In reality, this indicates that Neanderthals used their teeth as tools, not only for eating, but also for holding, pulling, or processing materials. His jaw was broad, with no protruding chin like modern humans. The front teeth were large, while the molars were comparable in size to those of people today. Notably, scientists also found evidence of gum disease and tartar buildup, proving that Altamura Man suffered from dental problems just like modern humans do. Analysis of tooth wear and dental plaque also provided insight into his diet, revealing that Neanderthals did not live purely on instinct but followed relatively stable daily habits. So how did this man die? The prevailing hypothesis among scientists suggests that Altamura Man may have accidentally fallen into a deep pit inside the cave and was unable to escape. Trapped, unseen, and alone, he likely starved to death in the cold darkness. Over time, mineral-rich water and sediment slowly covered his body, transforming him into a rare natural mummy. This discovery is especially valuable because after Neanderthals went extinct around 30,000 to 50,000 years ago, finding an intact skeleton of one is almost unimaginable. Yet Altamura Man defied those odds, becoming a vivid witness to a time when humanity was still struggling simply to survive. Today, science also shows that Neanderthals were far from the brutish creatures they were once believed to be. They used flowers and fragrances in burial rituals, possessed complex spiritual and cultural lives, and even interacted and interbred with Homo sapiens, leaving traces of Neanderthal DNA in many modern Europeans. In this way, Altamura Man is not just a 130,000-year-old mummy, but a doorway into a long and mysterious story about the origins and evolutionary journey of our own species. So if you were standing face to face with him one day, would you feel fear, or would you simply feel as though you were looking at a very distant relative of humanity? Let me know what you think by leaving a comment below this video. 1,700-year-old tomb of a barbarian warrior. You have probably heard of the so-called barbarians, warriors from the cold northern lands who lived along the edges of the Roman Empire and once made even this mighty empire uneasy. But can you imagine that, after centuries have passed, one of them could still leave behind a legacy powerful enough to astonish modern archaeologists? Next, we will explore a fascinating archaeological discovery in the quiet village of Gerstetten, located about 40 miles east of the German city of Stuttgart. Right in the heart of this rural area, seemingly frozen in time, archaeologists uncovered a 1,700-year-old grave, believed to be the final resting place of a man from a barbarian tribe. The tomb was discovered in early May during excavation work ahead of a new housing development. What makes it remarkable is not only its age, nearly 2 millennia old, but also the craftsmanship and historical value hidden within. This was no ordinary grave. It was surrounded by a wooden burial chamber, set apart yet strikingly prominent within the area. Inside lay the remains of a man who died at around 60 years of age. He was buried alongside numerous valuable grave goods, indicating that he held a position of considerable status within his community. The artifacts included pottery, a finely toothed comb, and most notably, a high-quality glass cup believed to have originated from the Roman fort of Guntia, modern-day Günzburg. Interestingly, while some of the objects clearly bear Roman characteristics, others are typical of the Elbe-Saale region in central Germany, hundreds of miles away from the burial site. This suggests that the man lived during a period of cultural overlap between the civilized Roman world and the so-called barbarian Germanic tribes, serving as living evidence of the complex connections between these cultures. Gerstetten lies near the northern frontier of the Roman Empire, in what was known as Upper Germania. Beyond that stretched Magna Germania, home to numerous Germanic tribes. The Roman border, known as the Limes, was once heavily guarded by legions stationed at forts such as Guntia. Yet the Germanic peoples, with their distinct lifestyles and burial customs, continued to exist and thrive beyond direct Roman control. The Romans referred to them as barbarians, a term used for those who spoke unfamiliar languages and lived outside Roman cultural norms. According to researchers, the man buried in Gerstetten was likely a member of the Alemanni tribal confederation, a group that once lived near the Upper Rhine Valley. Graves belonging to the Alemanni from this period are extremely rare, making this discovery especially valuable. Experts believe the burial dates to between AD 263 and AD 342. Typically, graves of this type appear in small clusters of 5 to 12 individuals, and archaeologists suspect that at least 2 more graves may still be hidden somewhere nearby. This discovery therefore offers not only a vivid snapshot of a turbulent period in history, but also powerful evidence of the interaction and even collision between two worlds, Roman civilization and the Germanic tribes labeled as barbarians. One tomb, one story, but an entire historical treasure waiting to be uncovered. The astonishing scene inside a 1,000-year-old royal tomb in China that stunned experts. In ancient times, preparing for the afterlife was considered one of the most sacred and important rituals, especially for the wealthy and the powerful. For them, death was not simply an end, but a transition into a new world, one that had to be carefully and lavishly prepared to ensure the soul could rest in luxury and honor. Naturally, not only emperors, but also members of royal and noble families were buried with numerous precious grave goods such as gold, silver, and gemstones. Items that carried not only economic value, but also immense cultural and historical significance. However, what truly astonished experts was not just the wealth of these tombs, but a remarkable discovery made in 1993 in an ordinary village in Zhangjiakou, Hebei Province, China. There, archaeologists uncovered an ancient tomb dating back to the Liao dynasty, more than 1,000 years old, containing an intact banquet table inside. The story began when a local resident noticed signs of water seepage on the ground and reported it to archaeological authorities. This led to the excavation of a burial complex featuring a passageway over 20 feet long, descending to an arched tower gate adorned with exquisitely carved decorations so vivid that one could almost imagine scenes from the ancient world coming to life. Beneath the gate were 2 large doors, resembling those of traditional houses even today. Upon opening them, experts encountered 2 statues standing like loyal guards protecting the entrance. Deeper inside, another wooden door led to a chamber filled with valuable burial objects. But what truly left everyone speechless was a large round dining table that remained nearly intact. This round table was fully set with dining utensils, dishes, and fruits. Although the food had deteriorated over time, experts could still identify items such as grapes, chestnuts, and various vegetarian dishes, consistent with the Buddhist beliefs of the tomb's owner. Beside the table was a complete set of chairs, as if the host could sit down and enjoy a meal at any moment, reflecting warmth and hospitality even in the afterlife. Nearby, archaeologists also discovered a small grain storage area containing sorghum and other cereals, further demonstrating the meticulous care taken to ensure the deceased would enjoy a comfortable and well-provided life in the next world. Equally intriguing was a green-colored bottle containing a reddish-orange liquid with a strong aroma, which experts believe to be ancient wine. The presence of grapes and wine in the tomb proves that during the Liao dynasty, people had already mastered grape cultivation and wine production, a valuable cultural detail that enriches our understanding of ancient Chinese civilization. An inscription found inside the tomb revealed information about its owner, a man with the surname Zhang, who lived during the Liao dynasty and was well known for his charitable deeds throughout his life, earning the admiration of the local people. Most remarkably, the inscription also recorded a warm and open invitation, stating that anyone who entered the tomb was welcome to sit down and share a cup of wine with him, a deeply human and touching gesture that reflects the owner's kindness and hospitality. The tomb's remarkable state of preservation, along with the banquet table and its diverse, valuable artifacts, has provided archaeologists with profound insights into the material life and spiritual beliefs of the Liao dynasty. More than that, it offers a new perspective on how people in the past prepared for their journey after death. It stands as a vivid testament to their belief in eternal life and their reverence for the transition into another world, one where cultural values, human connections, and emotions were meant to be preserved intact, transcending the limits of time itself. An oasis of knowledge in the heart of the Sahara Desert. When people think of the Sahara Desert, they often picture scorching heat, sand-filled winds, and endless dunes stretching to the horizon. But who would believe that in the midst of such a harsh environment, there exists a true treasure of humanity? Not gold or silver, but knowledge itself. And Chinguetti, an ancient city deep within the territory of Mauritania, is living proof of that seemingly impossible idea. Hidden among vast seas of sand, Chinguetti is home to more than 6,000 rare books and manuscripts that have been preserved for centuries. Among them are some of the oldest Quran manuscripts in the world, along with numerous texts on astronomy, medicine, mathematics, law, and philosophy, dating back as early as the 9th century. Each page is more than ink on paper. It is a lasting imprint of an era when knowledge was considered more valuable than anything else. Looking back through history, Chinguetti was once one of the most vibrant trade hubs in West Africa. Merchant caravans from Europe and North Africa chose this city as a crucial stop before venturing deeper into the Sahara. But Chinguetti was not merely a resting point for daring traders. It was also a gathering place for those hungry for knowledge. Poets, physicians, lawyers, scholars, and scientists all converged here, exchanging ideas, engaging in intellectual debates, and inspiring one another. This atmosphere of learning turned the city into a symbol of culture and scholarship for centuries. The city was founded around the 11th to 12th centuries, nestled between rugged mountain ranges and vast plateaus. It lay along a vital trade route for merchants dealing in gold, salt, spices, and even slaves, commodities that once shaped the destinies of entire civilizations. Thanks to this strategic location, Chinguetti flourished, becoming both a major commercial center and a renowned seat of learning. Even Ibn Battuta, the legendary traveler of the Islamic world, passed through Chinguetti before continuing his long journey to China. But all glory eventually fades. Harsh climatic changes and prolonged desertification gradually drained Chinguetti of its vitality. Trade routes declined, the population thinned, and the once bustling city fell into silence. Today, Chinguetti stands as a quiet witness to history, silently resisting the encroaching sand and wind. Without timely preservation efforts, the city faces the real risk of being swallowed by the desert, taking with it an irreplaceable treasure trove of human knowledge. Visiting Chinguetti today feels like stepping into a journey back in time. Sand-covered alleyways lead to weathered gray stone walls, behind which lie small wooden doors that appear unremarkable at first glance. But step across those thresholds, and an entire world of knowledge opens before you. Librarians still quietly guard the ancient manuscripts day after day, handling each book with extreme care, often only while wearing gloves. The paper, parchment, and ink are fragile, as if whispering stories from hundreds of years ago. Within these manuscripts are notes written in red ink, recalling a time when as many as 10,000 camel caravans passed through the city each day, a number that gives a sense of just how lively Chinguetti once was. And if you close your eyes in the heart of this ancient city, you might almost hear the footsteps of merchants, the sounds of camels, children laughing, and the animated debates of scholars from centuries past. Then, when you open your eyes, all that remains is an uncanny silence. A pause filled with nostalgia. Amid the vast sea of sand, the sight of librarians quietly protecting this treasure of knowledge, seemingly unaware of how much the outside world has changed, creates a feeling unlike anywhere else. It is a feeling found only in Chinguetti. And so, it is no exaggeration to say that this place is not merely an ancient city, but a remarkable crossroads between past and present, where knowledge continues to survive quietly amid the harsh breath of the Sahara Desert. The giant skull of a sea monster in England. Imagine this. Before you lies a peaceful beach, waves gently lapping the shore, the wind carrying the familiar scent of salt. Yet, just beneath the seemingly lifeless pebbles, hides a creature that once terrified the entire ocean. Even a single exposed bone can pull history back 150 million years, and that's exactly what happened on the Jurassic Coast in Dorset, England. Here, scientists discovered a giant skull measuring 6.9 feet long, a number enough to make anyone's jaw drop. And the owner of this massive skull? None other than the pliosaur, a marine monster that ruled the ocean's food chain during the Jurassic period, around 150 million years ago. Not a whale, not a shark. Pliosaurs were massive marine reptiles, born to hunt and dominate. Pliosaurs could reach 33 to 39 feet in length, with powerful muscular bodies and 4 large flippers acting like massive oars. This unique body structure allowed them to accelerate quickly underwater, closing in on prey in mere seconds. But what made all other creatures tremble lay in their jaws. Scientists estimate the bite force of a pliosaur to be twice as strong as a modern saltwater crocodile, a species already notorious for its death-grip bite. Each tooth was razor-sharp, with small ridges on the back. These ridges helped the teeth sink deeply into prey, tearing flesh efficiently, then quickly withdraw to strike again. A single strike left the victim almost no chance to escape. Because of this, the pliosaur is considered one of the deadliest killing machines the ancient oceans ever produced. Paleontologist Andre Rowe from the University of Bristol described the pliosaur as an indiscriminate predator. Any unfortunate creature in its sights, from large fish to ancient dolphins, even other pliosaurs, could become its meal. He even compared it to the Tyrannosaurus rex, but instead of ruling the land, the pliosaur was the T-Rex of the oceans. Interestingly, this sensational discovery did not start with a large-scale excavation, but with a fossil enthusiast named Phil Jacobs. While walking along England's southern coast, Jacobs noticed a strange part of a snout protruding from the pebbles. His instincts told him this was no ordinary find. Using a drone to survey from above, Jacobs spotted the entire head of the giant creature nearby, seemingly waiting to be unearthed. Excavating the fossil proved extremely difficult. Paleontologists had to climb steep cliffs and inspect every inch of rock to avoid damaging the precious specimen. Because of these harsh conditions, this pliosaur skull is considered exceptionally rare and nearly complete, a true treasure for science. More than just an impressive fossil, this discovery provides vivid evidence of just how dangerous the ancient oceans were. Long before humans existed, long before today's familiar creatures ruled the seas, the pliosaur was the ultimate terror of every underwater being. And when this giant skull emerged from the Jurassic coast, it served as a stark reminder. Earth still holds countless ancient secrets, waiting for a single moment to be revealed. 3,500-year-old skeletons of a man and woman holding hands. Do you believe in love that transcends time? Not modern romantic tales, but a love from 3,500 years ago, buried beneath the earth, yet still holding hands as if they had never parted. Recently, an emotional and mysterious archaeological discovery in Siberia captured worldwide attention. In the village of Stary Tartas, in the frigid Siberian region, Russian scientists uncovered 2 skeletons, one male, one female, buried face down together, their hands clasped tightly as if making a promise to never be separated. This love story, from the Bronze Age over 3 millennia ago, now comes alive through every bone, every sacred layer of earth that held them. But this is not just an ancient love story. The discovery raises haunting questions and challenges archaeologists to uncover the truth behind it. Could this be the earliest evidence of a nuclear family where parents and children coexisted within a close-knit social unit? Or is it a form of ritual sacrifice, where a wife was killed after her husband's death to join him in the afterlife? According to Professor Vyacheslav Molodin, research director at the Institute of Archaeology and Ethnography in Siberia, this burial style opens up many hypotheses. If a grave contains adults and children, their kinship could be easily understood: parent-child, aunt-nephew, or similar. But when 2 adults are buried together, holding hands in such a tender gesture, the explanations become far more complex. Could this be evidence of a society that highly valued romantic love? Or a social ritual where death was not just an ending but also a sacred bond? Beyond this extraordinary couple, archaeologists discovered several other graves in the region with similar cases, children buried alongside adults. This strengthens the hypothesis about ancient family structures and encourages scientists to conduct DNA analyses to determine whether those buried together were related. Genetic research could reveal a whole picture of Bronze Age society, showing how people loved, lived, and died in ways very different from today. Although no final conclusions have been reached, the story of this 3,500-year-old couple has touched millions of hearts. It reminds us that love, regardless of era, remains humanity's most powerful connection. Whether in war, ancient times, or the freezing Siberian wilderness, humans have always sought to be close to one another in their final moments. Earth-swallowing sinkholes in the Russian forests, a mystery that baffles science. Amid the dense, wild forests of vast Russia, there are places where simply stepping foot can send shivers down your spine. There, the familiar ground suddenly gives way to deep vertical sinkholes, as if someone had drilled straight down from above. No explosions, no signs of digging, no one witnessing the process. And yet, overnight, an ominous black gateway appears right in the middle of the forest. Hearing this, you might ask yourself, what on earth is actually happening below? To find clues, let's go back to the late 1980s, when this strange phenomenon began to be recorded in various regions of Russia, most notably in Ryazan and Kaluga provinces in the west, and Krasnoyarsk in central Russia. Interestingly, these sinkholes vary greatly in age. Some are believed to have existed for hundreds of thousands of years, while others appeared so suddenly that locals swear, "It wasn't here yesterday, and yet today it stands towering in the forest." All of these sinkholes share one suspicious feature. They are deep, nearly vertical, and have unnaturally smooth walls, looking like the product of a massive precision drilling machine. The most famous of these holes, which went viral online, lies in a dense forest so inaccessible that no vehicles could reach it. People couldn't even bring heavy equipment, yet no trace of displaced soil or rocks was found around the hole. It's as if the earth simply opened up and swallowed itself. In Kaluga, the story becomes even more eerie. A shepherd named Pyotr Malinkin, while tending his cows, discovered a large sinkhole about 20 feet in diameter right on a familiar pasture. He was certain that the day before, the area was completely normal. Malinkin's cows seemed to sense the danger as well. They were terrified, unwilling to approach, and avoided the surrounding grass, as if some invisible force was warning them. When researchers arrived to survey the site, locals reported that the hole had appeared overnight. It wasn't perfectly round but slightly oval, about 15 feet deep, with water pooling at the bottom. The walls were unnaturally smooth, almost unbelievable. Even more intriguingly, the locals remembered that several decades ago, about a mile away, there had been another sinkhole. They had tried filling it with sacks of grain, tree branches, and large rocks, but it would not fill. Over time, that hole disappeared beneath the forest growth as if it had never existed. Nearby, there is also a strange stream known as the Angry Creek. Whenever someone approaches, the water begins to boil and bubble violently, and the more people gather, the more turbulent it becomes. Local legend claims that an old church once stood where the creek now flows, buried underground in 1812 when Napoleon's troops passed through. Some hypotheses suggest that limestone formations and underground water erosion created cavities, causing the land to collapse. But that explanation cannot account for the smooth walls and sudden emergence of these sinkholes. Since then, a multitude of theories have emerged. Rare natural phenomena, mysterious underground activity, and even bold speculations involving aliens collecting soil samples. Yet to this day, all explanations remain purely speculative. These deep, silent sinkholes still lie in Russia's ancient forests, posing an open question that challenges the limits of human understanding and leaving anyone who hears about them with an undeniable chill of awe and curiosity. What about you? What do you think of today's archaeological discoveries? Which find impressed you the most? Don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments below this video. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Ancient History channel so you won't miss any of our amazing discoveries. For now, thanks for watching and see you next time.